Execute the prisoner. Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen meetings, the Town of Littleton, Monday, July 23rd, 2018. Proposed agenda for tonight begins with the organization Pledge of Allegiance mail, followed at 6:35 by various actions involving town departments. At 6:55, we have a joint meeting with the Permanent Municipal Building Committee on a variety of topics. At 7:10, we have scheduled public input and members' updates. 7:15, we have a joint meeting scheduled with the Planning Board on a number of topics of mutual interest. 7:45, we have a number of topics specific to the Board of Selectmen that have been requested or require updates. And at 8:10, we have a continuation of two liquor license violation hearings, which we initially addressed a couple of weeks ago. At 8:50, we anticipate having the town administrator, assistant town administrator, other departments update us on a variety of topics relative to the fall schedule. We have minutes to approve at 9:10, and at 9:15, we have an executive session which is relative to non-union contract strategy and negotiations. With that, and before our Pledge of Allegiance, I would like to ask the board and the public to stand in a moment of silence in recognition of the slain Sergeant Michael Chestnut from the Weymouth Police Department, who was murdered in the course of his duties. Madam Clerk, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Keith, you want to take us through the mail?
Sure. A number of updates, all involving various amounts of money from the state. So I'll go through chronologically. We've heard in the last couple of weeks that MassDOT had awarded two $500,000 grants under the Industrial Rail Access Program to two local businesses, the Middlesex Corporation and Patriot Beverage, for rail spurs along the Fitchburg line, and the Board of Selectmen had voted last winter to support both of those grant applications, and we had both businesses there, so congratulations to them on that $1 million that is coming into town. After that, we heard from the Mass Board of Library Commissioners that Littleton's library project had been fourth on the list for funding for construction projects, that the three ahead of us, Greenfield, Hingham, and Marlborough, were awarded conditional grants at the commissioners' meeting in July. Those towns have 6 months to get their local funding in place, and at the end of that, if there's any money available, then it would be made available to number 4 on the list, which is Littleton. And at that time, Littleton would then have 6 months. So typically, the Mass Board of Library Commissioners has been taking action in February and July each year, so it would seem like if there's any new news, that we'd be hearing it by February, and then have 6 months to get a town meeting vote. As we discussed last week at our special meeting with Secretary of Economic Development, Jay Ash, we had learned that Senator Eldridge was successful in getting a $6 million earmark for Littleton Smart Sewer in the Senate version of the environmental bond bill. That bill is now in committee. There was not an earmark in the House version, so differences between the two will be worked out. I would presume soon, because the formal session ends June 31st, and I know the legislature wants to look into that this week, so that there's the time to override gubernatorial vetoes before the end of the session. And then the last one to report are these folks, Chase and Anthony, went and got $250,000 from the Lieutenant Governor in Winthrop last Friday afternoon for Littleton's third Green Communities grant in the last 3 years. And it's $250,000, all for projects for the schools. And $280,000 worth of projects, for which we will be using $30,000 in energy rebates. And my favorite part of this presentation is to estimated annual energy savings of over $70,000. So that's the amount of money that the schools will save once these projects are put in place. So congratulations to our team. A lot of work that was done, in no small measure. Completing last year's project by December was critical to be able to apply for this year's project. And so we're on a similar, we were just discussing, we'll be on a similar deadline of wanting the schools to complete these projects by December, so we can submit another application for our fourth grant come next February. So.
Just a quick comment, the $250,000 is the max, the most any community got in the Commonwealth, and the town of Acton got $249,986, so we beat them by $14.
Speed Act.
Not competitive at all.
No.
So, and we'll hear more about this, I know, when we debrief on the smart sewer funding and so on, when Jay Ash advised us on last Tuesday that we needed to go talk to Matt Beaton, that Chase and Anthony checked that box off last Friday afternoon. And started a conversation, yeah.
Lasso is duct tape.
Okay.
Anything else? That's it for now?
Yep, thanks.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. And so, item 2A, Fire Department, Advanced Life Support Licensure Update. You have some good news for us, Chief Wazinski.
I do. So just a week ago, this past Friday, we received our inspection and our ALS license. Went last week Monday, went into Boston with our copy of our license and our check sheet, and we were handed our drug license. So over the course of last week, we were able to stock the ambulances. They're fully stocked, equipped to run ALS, including medications. And as of this past Saturday, we started running ALS. So we ran actually Saturday, Sunday, and today.
Really?
There will be a couple.
Did you have any calls yet that required that?
Several, yes.
Really?
Yep. So we had, we had crash on the highway, a few respiratory distress, because allergic reaction. So we had several opportunities to
So no more
use
of
the
pulling
service.
over at the town line, meeting another ambulance?
We'll still have a few times where we're still patching in with Westford and Air.
I've lived that
And-
experience, so
Yep.
I don't wish it on anybody.
They'll be covering us and helping us out over the course of the next week or so. I have two of the medics will be graduating the fire academy this coming Friday, so that's two more people that will be going to shift on Saturday. So
Terrific.
we'll have a bit more coverage as far as the ALS service goes. So
Oh, we're
yes,
already functional.
We are up and running.
Mission accomplished, that's
Yeah.
good.
That requires any,
That's a two, no action required, that's a twofer though, because in the same year that ALS is implemented, that the fire department completed its facility and moved in successfully. So congratulations.
And on it.
thanks. Thank you. All right. Chief Bernard? Our next topic are police chief department regulations relative to emergency medical dispatch. So we have a lengthy set of regulations here, which I hope you will give us a executive summary of and tell us a little bit about the process involved in driving them.
I will. It's basically going to go hand in hand with the paramedics coming on board. It's EMD, emergency medical dispatch policy. Needs to be put in place because we're already doing it.
Right.
Town of Air has the same exact policy. We basically adopted their policy, changed it around, didn't reinvent the wheel at all. Same exact setup that they have, we're going to be using the same exact setup with us. We'll be, it's all in quality assurance and going forward, being able to give the people that are calling the needs and wants that they have to go forward before the ambulance actually arrives on scene.
Do we have any need, do you see any need to run this by our insurers or legal or at all? You know,
None whatsoever. Pretty much, we got a policy that runs with EMD throughout the state.
Okay, so this is the standard.
And just on the procedure, that under Chapter 41, Section 97A, the so-called strong chief statute, that the chief issues the regulations, and they are subject, and they go into effect within 30 days, or after 30 days if there's no action by the Board of Selectmen. And routinely, that it has been the practice to just notify you of them if you have questions asked about it. But where we're implementing ALS, the fire department, we wanted to not wait for the 30 days and implement this standard for the dispatch as well.
So there's a policy and procedure in place right now, this is just gonna take the place of that with the modifications.
Rather than waiting for 30 days, it'll go into effect immediately.
So can you explain what the difference, the substantive differences between this policy and the policy it's superseding are? I mean, what?
It's actually going to go hand in hand. With
Oh,
the
okay, it's
with the
not
commu-
superseding.
No, it's going to go hand in hand with the communications policy that we have right now.
Okay.
We are going to tweak that to add EMD into it, but we're going to have two separate policies and keep them both in place.
Comments or questions on the board?
No.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion then.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 97A, to approve the following regulations for the Littleton Police Department as submitted by Chief of Police Matthew Pennard on July 17, 2018, 4.09, emergency medical dispatch.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay? You guys have it? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we are now moving on to our highway department. Chris Stoddard, if you'd like to come up and join us. The sooner you get up here, the quicker you can be on the road back to Weston, Mass.
It's more Western Worcester, Mass.
Oh, and
Worcester
not Greenfield, Garathol, that's right, yeah, okay.
Yeah, right on the line of Worcester County.
Okay, and we need to schedule a public hearing on transfer station fees, right, or?
Right.
Yes, right. So, but you're going to walk us through the world of where we're at right now, impacted by all sorts of global trade policies and such. I see it, that's great. That's
Yeah, isn't that-
another Weston and Sampson production up there.
How's that?
Of the numbers, yes.
Finance. Basically,
Good audience, all pick on them.
basically though, we found that recycling, obviously for various reasons, is starting to go incredibly expensive. So much so that the current fee structure cannot support it. The MSW, the trash, that seems to be still okay. We've gotten a fairly good price, so our bag fees and stuff are actually supporting our waste, but the recycling has gotten out of control to where we can't support it. So we have to request some fee increases. And Bonnie's run a few different scenarios here to kind of go through.
Most of this is because there's no market.
Yeah, correct.
Chinese market is where
Yeah,
all
so
the
what happened,
cardboard and all
the
that.
vast majority of our product was being shipped to China, and when they shut the door, everybody. And we're not just the only town, it's literally across the country.
Yeah, the yellow sheets are like.
It's everywhere. We've been lucky still. We've had some companies that are still working with us. Like, we haul our glass all the way to Keene right now, which is a huge expense. But we're getting a fairly low price per ton, so it's kind of a trade-off.
As opposed to, some towns are just outright landfilling it.
Yeah, correct, yeah. Basically, DEP's allowed them, since there is nowhere to go, they're just, it's going in the recycling bin, but then the recycling bin's getting dumped at the landfill, so it's,
And we're not in that position.
we are not in that, no, currently we do not do that.
And again, how does that impact the fee schedule as you proposed it?
Yeah, so, do you want to
Sure.
go through that?
I'll jump in. So based on last year's operations, typically in the past several years, we've tried to do a break-even operation structure, and we've been successful with that. We had a small increase about 2 years ago by about $10 per sticker fee, which maintained the break-even rate. This past year, though, with the fee structure that you see in place at $110 for the full-price sticker and $35 for the seniors, we operated at a loss of $35,000, or about 10%. That created a general fund subsidy. So we based the fees hoping to capture the full costs, including fringe. So we ran at a loss, and that was a general fund subsidy. If we keep the fees the same, if you slide it just a little to the right, based on the current run rate, we're going to look at a loss of about $103,000. So again, that's a direct general fund subsidy that I'll need to account for in the fall town meeting. So I presented a couple of options based on, what I think might be reasonable or what the board might want to entertain. There are a million options in between any of the ones that I've given you for you to
It's like
consider.
a tax rate.
Correct. In the past, what we've tried to do is base the sticker price on operating the transfer station, just at its basic level. And we base the bag fees based on the cost of disposing the trash. Based on my analysis, the bag fees are adequate. They're covering the cost of disposing the trash with a small surplus, about $12,000 a year. So I don't think we need to change any of those. Where the deficit comes into play is at the actual transfer station operation or the sticker fees. So I've looked at a couple of different options, and again, you can request presentations on any number of options, but this is what I'm doing for tonight. The first is no change to the stickers or bag fees, which is resulting in the $103,000 general fund subsidy that you see. Option B would be to keep the same general fund subsidy with an equal dollar amount increase to the sticker fees. And that would result in about a $33,000 general fund subsidy. Option C would be the same general fund subsidy, but instead of an equal dollar, just be an equal percentage increase, which would result in approximately a $35,000 general fund subsidy. Option D would be no general fund subsidy, which is what we had kind of shot for in the past. That would require kind of a larger increase. You can see the sticker fees going up significantly from the current 110 to 170 for regular, and from 35 to 95 for the senior stickers. That would create a small surplus of about $2,000 a year. And then option E would be no general fund subsidy with an equal percentage increase. Again, creating about a $510 subsidy with slightly varying sticker fees. I realize this is a large increase to the sticker fees, so it might warrant you requesting additional options. I wanted to give you some framework of where we've been in the past and where you might want to go in the future. And I would qualify, in the past, we've always based the sticker fees based on recovering the results of operations for the transfer station, but if you want to look at tweaking the sticker fees, I can look at that also.
The bag fees?
Yes, absolutely.
That would be my
Yes, the bag
My
fees.
first piece of commentary is that all of the options that we've got right now have the same bag fee, and it, in terms of spreading, distributing it, it would seem to make sense to consider the
And
significance of
I can
not
do
much
that, it's
changes.
just in the past, it's always been the bag fees are maintained to cover the cost of disposal. So that would be more of a
Bags,
policy.
Of course, the one thing that reflects the actual usage by,
Well, the bags fee, no usage of trash.
right?
So if theoretically, if you less trash you use, the more you recycle, so there's supposed to be that savings to you. But that's, so, it's not the usage of the transfer station, it's the usage of the trash services.
Right, but the more bags you buy, the more trash you're putting in the system. Yes.
But again, with the recycling costs
Yeah.
increasing, that's put into the operations of the transfer station, so it is a
Unfortunately, it's
balancing
kind of a
act.
catch-22, the better people are at recycling, the more it's actually costing the town.
Right now.
Yeah, and in the current market.
And previously, it was, we were actually generating.
Oh, previously, we were making money, a lot, you know, in these numbers, we've had
The
to,
town has gone
Yeah.
away, there is no financial incentive.
in these
to
numbers,
recycle.
you know, we've been able, in the past, we received checks for cardboard, tin cans. Those are all, for all intents and purposes, going away, and now we're having to pay. There's a couple of those that we do get a little bit of money from, but the vast majority is all, we have to now pay to get rid of.
So these are options. Is there a recommendation in here somewhere or not? And this, I want to remind the crowd too, this is not the hearing, this is the
We have recommendations on the.
item to schedule the hearing.
The cost of the miscellaneous items, I don't know, if you sent that to.
They were part of the hearing materials.
We have recommendations for the miscellaneous disposal items, the tires,
Right.
things like
Which
that.
does not have a tremendous impact on this model. It just
Right.
maintains the 20,000 that we're estimating
Yeah,
for receiving.
And I
those.
noticed most of those didn't change by more than
No.
a couple bucks.
No,
yeah.
No.
the biggest one is the mattresses, and that is strictly because because our rates were already set as of last year, the company we send them to honored that rate, but they said that will not happen again. So we've reflected the actual true
Oh,
cost of us having
Yeah,
to
I guess that is
dispose.
a big jump.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're reflecting the true cost of actually having to dispose of those mattresses. We got lucky that they were willing, we would have had to eat that about $30 a mattress last year, but they gave us a break.
So from the finance department, it would be helpful if the board had an opinion on whether they wanted to just maintain the general fund subsidy that was supplied last year or increase it. And from that, I could present a couple of different options to meet those goals. Again, maintaining the general fund subsidy would be about a $35,000 subsidy. To increase it could be anywhere up to, 103 or beyond. If there were some sense of what would be.
I'll see if I can get a sense of the board here. Members, have you had a chance to digest this information, and do you have initial thoughts on what direction you'd like to see the allocation of the cost go?
The one thing that's jumping out at me is the cost increase to the senior citizens. They're really struggling with budget issues anyways, even at $35. I mean, just looking at the options here, I would love to see no cost increase to the senior citizens, if at all possible.
At least see that scenario where it does.
Yeah, and how
Sure.
we could,
Do you know offhand what percent of the licenses are in that category?
It's close to 50/50.
Right.
It's,
It is.
We're
there's,
talking, it's not, we're getting
Right.
half the.
right, and I appreciate that, and I can see here, it's all in the,
yeah,
trying to be fair.
Yes.
What age are we considering senior citizens?
60
60.
is when they start getting senior.
Do we change that age?
So right now, there's 925,
Yeah.
non-senior stickers, and almost 796 senior stickers.
Okay, and that's
in
60
general.
and
So
over.
it's,
So it'd be
Yeah.
almost a 1-to-1 ratio.
Right.
The money one group saves, the other would.
Right,
Fair.
right. Could we increase the age restriction on that? Can we do that?
Certainly could.
You could, I mean, one seamless way might be to say whatever it is now, you carry it forward for 1 year, So if your goal is to ultimately move it from 60 to a higher number, well, you can move it to
You do 1 year
61.
every year, so that
So
person
you're-
doesn't lose
so
it.
whoever's getting the discount this year at 60 will get it next year at 61. Just for example. That's
I mean,
one way to do it.
I don't mind saying personally, that it just, when I was made aware of how significant portion, we're not giving a discount to a small subset, we're giving a
Right,
discount
no,
to
and I
essentially
understand that.
half the
I
people
know.
there, and not all of them are, feeling the same financial restrictions as some of their peers are.
Right.
So it's difficult.
Right.
We're essentially letting a lot of people get significantly discounted permit carried by the rest of the,
Right,
um,
the burden switches over, right.
so, I don't know.
That's a third.
Hmm?
They pay a third.
Yeah.
Standard.
Okay.
One thing I would be interested in seeing is if, or understanding if you're willing to do this or able to do this, is look out 2 years. You know, essentially, if we said to you, Chris and Bonnie, what we'd like to see is no subsidy 2 years out and get us halfway there next year and then the other half the year after, so that we, you know, perhaps next year we take a little bit of a hit as far as a general fund subsidy and then get squared the next year. It's a big jump to go in 1 year, and
Yeah, my data
I would
does
be
not track
interested
the
to know how
age.
that works.
And I don't know.
I don't know if mine, I think it's just a matter of a senior sticker.
Whether you qualify or not, so I'm not.
Oh, I wasn't
don't-
talking
Oh,
about
you're not
senior
just
stickers
overall.
specifically, I just meant
Yeah, so
broadly.
we can, yes, our quantities are pretty consistent year over year, and the only issue we'll have is our contracts for hauling are up next September.
Nice.
19, correct. So, what's that?
Fiscal 20.
Fiscal 20. So, I can
We could
kind
make
of
some
project.
reasonable guesses.
Yes, I mean, Waste Management has indicated that the hauling costs in the end are probably going to go up. Obviously, everything goes up, so we can kind of, no. But yeah, we can kind of get you, I can get a rough what I think it would cost 2 years out.
I guess that's one scenario, not that I want 1,000 scenarios here, but I would like to understand what it looks like if we went halfway and then another halfway.
Soften the blow.
I mean, money's gotta come from somewhere. It
Sure.
it either comes from the general subsidy or it comes from fee payers, but, you know, residents are paying either way.
Right.
How they pay, I think, matters to some extent.
Well, the first thing, I'd be in charge, I'd be in favor of changing the age up to 65. I think that we have to wait a year. I think that would help this. And the only thing, I agree with what you're saying, Cindy, about the senior citizens, but when we started this bit, throwing the bags in, we had almost reached the point where it was going to be $400 for a seasonal sticker. And that was a big shock to a lot of people in town. They couldn't afford it. So
Right.
if we change that, we're jumping from what could be 196. Is that not going to be 250 for someone who's not a senior citizen?
Right.
That's what I want to stay away from.
Right. Yeah, no, I understand that. I wonder what it would be if we changed the age requirement to 65, how the users'
Yeah, I
percentage
don't
would
think we
change.
track data by birthday.
You don't?
That's the only part,
It's-
we just.
You
say
either
that.
qualify or you don't.
Okay,
But you should be
We
able
will
to
hear
get
from
that
that population.
data. And that data should be available through the clerk's office too, right?
Diane can probably get us.
Yeah.
We can take a general, I guess,
Yeah, it's-
percentage of residents over the age between 6 and 65, and theoretically think that that's a fairly good way to
Yeah.
guess.
I think that it's a moving upright right now for Chris with the material that's being hauled away now. You've got a place to bring the glass and can, you've got a place to dispose of the plastic, but it's costing us more and more every year, and you just don't know from year to year. The glass guy might say, all right, I'm done, can't take it
Well, in the
anymore.
end, Groton could shut us off altogether,
Right.
and then we have to haul all of ours. Basically, the only option we have is Waste Management, and that's $300 a load and $100 a ton almost. We get a subsidy back of that, so it ends up averaging about $40 a ton. So that would be a huge, holy moly. Let's hope not that doesn't happen. But it could, it very easily could.
All right, well, recognizing that the ask tonight is to schedule a hearing, nonetheless, you seeking input, and I'm happy to give my 2 cents to it too. I think our structure already is very slanted toward helping out seniors. So I think that going forward, we already have a pretty senior-friendly structure, and that additional costs, I would like to see an option that kind of bears them out across the board, and that, to me, means touching a variety of the impact points, whether it be the age, up to 65, whether it mean bags being considered where they hadn't been, and whether it may be, softening the blow by increasing, perhaps as Chase suggested, the town subsidy for a year or so to, to work this in, some sort of combination of things so that there isn't any one class that's getting whacked, as Chuck was saying. Let everybody share in the misery. And that being said, now that you've got about 15 different more options thrown at you.
Would you indulge yet?
Sure, go right ahead. Yeah.
I think I know the answer to this, but let's poke it anyway a little bit. One alternative we haven't considered is reducing cost on a operational hour basis. Do you sense that there's, right now we've got 1,500 hours. Do you sense that there's any meaningful room in there to reduce the number of operational hours and drive some of those costs down?
I think what you save in operations, you're not gonna save in pure tonnage and quantity of material. You're still gonna ship the same amount, it's just gonna be that much busier, say, without one day.
But you might be dropping down some of your overhead.
Yeah, but it's 2 people for 8 hours, 16, so you're talking 16 hours a week, $300 a week.
So the labor savings really isn't.
The cutting a day out is not gonna get you to the number you want. I think it's a minuscule amount, dropping the bucket compared to what the cost is. I think there's more room in adjusting fees, and like Paul said, maybe we touch into the bags a little bit to kind of offset that. I mean, we sell a lot, 54,000 bags. So
Yeah, I mean, by my rough math, if we jumped those
even if you went to
50 cents, and 25 cents, that's about $50,000 in revenue.
Right, exactly. So, and that's not a huge thing. Doesn't seem, going up 50 cents on a bag from $2.25 to $2.75 isn't a huge ask, I don't believe.
So the labor savings wouldn't really, it would end up costing us more than it would
I wouldn't
end up
yeah,
saving us.
I wouldn't recommend that because it's a lot harder. I mean, we have kind of a good thing right now. They get about 38 hours a week. If we cut them down to, say, we'll cut 8 hours at 30 hours, are they going to stay? If they leave, now I have to subsidize them with overtime shifts from my other guys. So in the end, we might cut our nose to spite our face, so to speak.
I
That's just
suspected
a
that's
guess,
the
but
answer.
that's my guess.
Knowing that our purpose here tonight was just to schedule the hearing, I hope you've got enough input back to work on this in the public. Feel free to let us know what your feelings are between now and the anticipated hearing date on August 13th, or show up on the 13th. And with that, unless the board has any more comment on it, I'd entertain a motion.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Town Code Chapter 181 to schedule a public hearing on Monday, August 13th, 2018 at 7:30 PM on the fee structure and regulations for use of the Town of Littleton Transfer Station effective October 1st, 2018, and further to invite input from the general public, the Board of Health, and Highway Department.
Sorry.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Chris. Bonnie?
Thank you all. There was a draft public hearing notice in there based on the 5 identified options. We will redo that before we.
I thought the structure of it was very easy to understand.
Mhm, yes.
I appreciate the clarity there.
We may want to have a table like the assessors have, where we give you multiple choices for
Right.
setting a tax rate.
Okay.
Okay?
Next topic, 2D, Housing Choice Capital Grant. Submit application for $250,000 for the fire department project. I know there's some interest in the board in discussing the process and some of the thought behind this proposal before it was made. So I invite, I guess, Chief Wazinski, who else is involved with this? You carrying the ball on this one?
Well, I think Anthony and I could probably do
Okay,
the
all right.
warm-up.
Yeah.
For,
That's right, there was a group effort involved. So
Yeah.
whoever wants to present it, please do. I do recognize that there's some board interest in the details behind this.
this is a grant that Littleton is eligible for. There are about 70 communities that are eligible to apply for so-called Housing Choice Capital grants. There's not a lot of money available for the 70 communities to compete for, and so it's going to be an extremely by its nature, it's going to be an extremely competitive process. The most you can get is $250,000. And so we took a look at the program requirements. I should mention that Maren helped assemble the information for what Littleton has done to address housing choice needs, for which we get points. That there's project need of what you're applying for, there's the financial feasibility, its readiness to proceed, those have to do with the project itself, but also the threshold is what has the community done to address housing needs, which also you get points for. So putting all of those, so any project we might do, is on a level footing with the criteria that Maren has developed of how we met various best practices. With respect to a project that's ready to go, the funds need to be expended by June 30. It's basically, it needs to be a shovel-ready project. It has to be completed by June 30, 2019. That reduced it from a number of things that we might have liked to have done, and I'll give one example. That the sewer team looked at whether we could use that $250,000 to hook the housing authority property into the wastewater treatment facility at the high school, because we've already approved $6,000 in engineering funds to explore that. Question was, could we then implement it and have get the benefit of additional density at that location? And the answer was no, that we couldn't get the permits in time we couldn't complete the engineering study, we couldn't complete the permitting process to be able to implement that project by June 30. So that one fell out. Another project that had popped up on the radar screen was something that we mentioned during the review of the road improvement plan that Chris had brought us. The idea that maybe there are improvements to Foster Street that we could add back in from the original project scope we submitted to MassDOT a year ago, which they curtailed down to a shorter list. So one of the things that we were exploring is whether we could put a roundabout for Foster at Harwood. And the problem with that is, while it's an idea, we haven't vetted it, we don't have an engineering design, and just didn't think that we could pull all those things together in time for getting a project done by June 30.
Who actually promoted that idea?
It was in the proposal that we submitted a year ago for Foster Street improvements.
I mean, who?
It would, yeah.
I think it's a crazy idea.
Yeah, it was in the.
Bad idea.
Yeah, so and yet another reason not to have it on the final list. And then beyond that, we looked at the capital improvements plan and saw which other projects that are in the neighborhood of $250,000 might be ready to go, and what separated the less competitive projects was that you get the most score, the highest score for if the project need is significant. And the project need is in a category of where you have a consent decree that you say from DEP that you need to address something, that you have handicapped accessibility requirements that you need to bring up to code, that there's some code violation that you're curing. And for the self-contained breathing apparatus, that was one that we could point to where we've been informed that there are code standards that we need to bring the equipment up to, so this was an opportunity to address it. Another thing that we looked at as well, because it's a big ticket item that if we can find outside funding to help pay for it, was the ladder truck. And for the fire department, and it did not. And if the grant funds would fully meet the need, that scores higher than using the grant funds to partially meet the need. And where in the case of the, say, $1 million ladder truck, we've only got $200,000 we've appropriated thus far. We applied for a federal grant for the rest, but the 250 wouldn't bring us up to the top. So in looking at a very competitive grant round, it looked like the fire department's self-contained breathing apparatus would be the
So
highest score.
in summary, the dollar amount was $250,000. We're under a tight schedule of needing to get the thing applied for quickly,
Right.
but more importantly, it has to be completed within a year.
Right.
But beyond that, the restrictions of the project were pretty broad as long as they're capital in nature.
It could be any capital project that it has to be like basically in your capital plan.
All right, so I guess the questions that I had heard, and I'll defer to board members to speak to them in detail, when did this process of deciding how we got to this as a finalist begin?
Right.
Cindy, you?
Yeah, no, it sort of caught me off guard a little bit, even though I know we talked about the capital plan in the past. I just was surprised I just wanted to know how we derived at this decision, based on the other needs or requests that had come before the board in the past. You know, from the highway department, from the police department. I just wanted to know how we arrived at this specific choice. So you did just provide me with more insight to it, but I don't know. I mean, I think maybe asking the board members if they had any input on it might have been helpful to me as a board member, just out of curiosity, just to see if we had anything that kind of jumped out at us that we felt might be a need for the community, other than what was chosen. So, I mean, it's come to us in motion form. I just was hoping that maybe there would be a little bit more of a discussion ahead of time.
Sure.
I'm just going to piggyback on it. Is there a list? I mean, you mentioned the road, the roundabout of the road already.
Yeah.
We've got the fire truck, which obviously we're not at the point we're close on completion on that. We've got the Scott Packs. Is there anything else on that list that just can help us to understand why? I mean, clearly the scoring, the way that the state scores each application, the decision to go with the Scott Packs, I understand it as staff decided that this is going to give us the highest
Right.
score and the highest
Right.
opportunity to get the money. But what else was on the list, I guess, is...
I think I debriefed on all the other ones. that we looked
Well,
at
how about this?
seriously.
When did that process begin? When did the
Oh, a
initial?
couple of weeks ago.
So it's only within the past couple of weeks
Yeah.
that this was on our radar screen, and then we had to make the decision?
Yeah, and I guess I'd say the reason is when we ruled it out of the sewer project, which was at two team meetings ago, at a team meeting at the end of June, it was, all right, well, I guess that one would have been a great one. That one would have been right in line, and when we had to drop it out, then it was looking back, well, what else do we have?
Was the bathhouse ever considered?
It was not, and it wouldn't be for the reason that it's not, that we don't, it's not shovel-ready. We don't have the design. So that's why it was really a tiny universe.
Well, isn't there equipment that the highway department has asked for, the police department has asked for? There's been other requests for items like
There
that
were
in the
no
past,
unfunded
correct?
requests from the police department,
No.
and there's no, as far as unfunded requests from the highway department.
Well, technically, anything on the capital plan could be taken off as it's in funding.
Yeah, if it were, yeah, it could be, if we were, but for this year, the projects that were, I mean, for the police department, there were no unfunded.
Yeah.
Everything they asked for, they got. Where they're,
I guess I want to say
Yeah.
two things. I mean, on the one hand, I don't want to lose sight of the bigger picture, which is the teams responded quickly and we're putting ourselves in a position to access a
Right.
good chunk of money to a worthy end that we've already decided we support. That being said, at some point in the game earlier on, it probably would have been appropriate to say to the board, hey, we're in this exercise, and what do you think? Here's where we're going with it. We're looking, with the
Here's the
following.
short list. What do you
Here's the
think?
short
Right.
list, and here's why some of those things don't work, and
Right.
but rather than presuming there's not going to be input from the board, I think it probably would have been, you know, if the opportunity allowed itself,
Right. Point well
get
taken.
board input.
Yep.
I think that's a good point, but I do trust that the professionals that we have in place, given us the short timeline, knowing that we needed to get the SCBA's, I mean, it's something that chief and deputy chief have brought before us for some time. You know, if we can pay for that through this grant, then that's monies that will be available, whether it's for ambulances or fire department equipment or police department or whatever other capital needs we do have, so. And you started that last statement, I appreciate the effort that went into it, and I do trust that the professionals that we.
Yeah, in the end, I would say we're like, it was like maybe an organizational alert that, oh, gee whiz, we better not miss, you know, this is a unique opportunity to stand in the short line to get a lot of money. We better make sure that we have something that's competitive, and I think we're over-focused on that and not focused enough on getting a lot of input. So,
That's received.
Are we backing into $40,000 that we don't have budgeted?
No. No, we can spend, no, I think we've gotten it down to under $10,000 of what the.
I guess that's what I was gonna
the cost
ask, is
would
if instead
yeah.
of 30,
Well, the cost-
units, we
Yeah,
can
the
get
cost
27.
Cost estimate
There's
was,
some there's a few promotional things that are going on right now that bring it within $2,000.
Okay. Very good, thank you.
Just as we're going down that road, is 30 the right number? Is that what we need?
That is seated positions, that is what's required to outfit the apparatus that we currently have.
Seated positions, you open the door for every piece of equipment we own?
Yes, that's what's required through NFPA.
It's a recommendation.
It's to fill those positions.
Right.
Absolutely. If we were to have a significant incident in town, and we had all the trucks there, but we only had half the packs, and I'd have to send half of our staff away because we wouldn't be able to protect them, that's not.
No, I agree, but if we don't have 30 bodies put in those 30 seats,
Yep.
then we don't need to have the stock backs for those seats.
Then our piece of apparatus wouldn't be compliant. That's what it boils down to. We are trying to remain compliant.
Chief, what do you have now? Do you have any of these, you must have something already.
We do, and the units that we have right now, every 5 years, they can go out for a hydro test. So they've hit their 15-year point, and now they need to be replaced. They'll hydro test them 3 times, and so as of next spring, it's one of the capital items.
We
that
deal
come
with this
forward.
regularly in the capital plan
Correct.
process. It's just, we're buying ourselves a little breathing room for something else prospectively
Yeah.
by purchasing these. But, no, I think the points raised are well taken, hopefully well received, and in the context of, great job overall, as always, responding quickly and hopefully successfully. All right, Anna, question?
Anna Houston, 20 Meeting House Road. So I just wanted to ask, are there any unintended consequences of moving forward and applying in this way so that in the next subsequent application year, perhaps the governing body takes a look and says, oh, well, Littleton has already had money and, kind of moves us aside? Any questions or concerns about that?
well, it certainly could be that if you get funded in 1 year, I mean, if it's, with the Complete Streets program, we've heard the theme that if you got a grant 1 year, you don't get a grant the next year, or you may not get a grant for a while. That will we find ourselves in that situation, it could be, we were only certified as a housing choice community for 2 years. I think the program rules may say if you get it in 1 year, you don't get it in another. The Community Compact program has the same thing. So we have not received a grant for information technology under the Community Compact program, but if you do get one in 1 year, you cannot apply for one the next year. So I guess it all gets back to at least what the organization's focus, or the staff focus was if we can bring 200, if we can compete and get $250,000 towards something we were gonna do anyway, then that is 200, then that's money that's available, that's freed up for something else that we can do.
And the other
So-
practical consideration is, given the time constraints both on filing and the need to complete, our greater likelihood was not getting something as opposed to not getting an application in.
Well, and furthermore, the number of, so I thought about this a little, and the number of housing choice communities, I mean, granted, there's an expiration date with everyone's, but we would presume that they're gonna grow over time. So if we can get in line now while the number is relatively
We can
small,
get to the front of the line.
yeah, then I think there's a better chance we get it funded, even if it's B+ instead of an A+.
That is why we got a Complete Streets grant in year one, because we were one of the first standing in line, and we got 400,000 in year one. So,
Okay. Trusting that the board has had enough discussion, meaningful discussion on this subject, I hope we can move to a motion.
Sure. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize submission of the Town of Littleton's application to the Baker Polito administration under its Housing Choice Grant, Capital Grant Program for $250,000 for self-contained breathing apparatus, SCBA units for the Littleton Fire Department.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Congratulations. Thank you for your work.
that's
all of
great,
you.
chief.
Yeah.
I said to you.
Fingers crossed.
All right,
And a hold
move
of Chris
on.
Kluchman. Send him a fruit basket.
We have a couple of topics to discuss in a joint meeting with our friends from the Permanent Municipal Building Committee. And I would like to start that off with, before we get into discussion of Alumni Field, other projects and committee membership, with a happy, bittersweet happy moment, and that is recognizing the retiring senior member, chairman of our esteemed Permanent Municipal Building Committee. Joe, if you could stand up for a moment here, I think the town wants to get another look at you. Former chairman. Well, as long as you're with us, Joe, you're chairman. I'll tell you, Joe, not a lot of folks may be aware that prior to coming to Littleton, Joe earned himself a great deal of experience and credit for his work on town boards in Acton, and I think before that, Bill Ricker, is that right? So he came to us with the world of service, arrived and gave himself to our Permanent Municipal Building Committee and promptly went to the business of teaching us how to do the job and do it right. And I'll tell you, I enjoyed seeing Joe walk a building project in its early stages and noticing small things that other folks wouldn't notice, politely calling over contractors and bringing them to task, getting the job done right. And I'll tell you, nobody has fought for the dollar of the Littleton taxpayer or for the integrity of the Littleton building process with more success and more skill than Joseph S. Calentro. So I'm deeply honored to be the person that gets to hand you this service award, Joe, from the town of Littleton, Massachusetts Service Award, presented to Joseph S. Calentro in recognition of your 14 years of dedicated service to the Permanent Municipal Building Committee, 2004 to 2018. Congratulations, Joe. Here's a shocker. Joe wants to say a few things. Here you go, Joe. The floor is yours.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm only going to say a few words. I don't think it's much more. 25 pages. No, seriously, I want to thank all my committee members over the years for their effort. All our people, particularly in Town Hall, who have supported us and have gone beyond, what's the word I want, where they should have been to help us out. And I just am very thankful for this award, very grateful for it. And all my committee members, you earned as well as I did. So thank you very much, committee. Thank you. We're busy. Thanks a lot.
Joe, stay there, we'll come to you.
Yeah, we'll come to you.
By the way, take my sidewalk.
Over 14 years, Joe, rattle off some of the projects we've done, or you've done in that 10 years.
Well, we went to school,
Middle school, yep,
and we helped at the Russell Street.
yep,
We fixed up the Shaker Lane.
yep.
We built a fire station, a
Police station, yeah.
which, by the way, when it's required that we have certain things in it, if you recall, the young lady that was being, somebody came all the way from the south to take her back south, and the FBI came into the police station, and they couldn't believe the equipment we had to work with. So we did very good there. Fire station was another one.
Laminate Fair.
That was a tough project because it was,
Watch out.
Behind you, Joe.
that was a tough project because of, the building burnt down in 1945,
Fire station, sure.
the fire station. And rather than remove all the stuff they had in it, they just dug a big hole in back and buried the trees, some of the walls. And that presented us a problem because we did do borings and found out that we didn't bore enough holes to find out where all the junk was. But we made it. We were a little late, but we were on budget. And I think those people who have been to the fire station will admit it's a beautiful piece of work. It'll take care of the town for the next, I think, 20 years anyway. Chief might not, but
That'll be at least that.
it's a piece, it came out nice. So we appreciate it. Thank you very much for everything. Now I'm going to retire.
Smile at Kirby.
Those are my few words.
We're gonna take the
Tell you one
PMBC
little
with
story.
Joe.
We're here.
It doesn't involve
Rich,
me.
while you're here,
Stay there, we're gonna do another picture with PMBC.
okay.
Please
Well,
step
Rich
down.
Crowley's here.
Yep.
When we moved, we were
You guys are both
responsible.
behaving yourselves. I'm very appreciative of that.
We were responsible to put
Hey,
the
Dale,
sewer line
make certain he
into,
doesn't trip on that mic wire when he gets out of
where it
there.
was coming out
Thank you.
Yeah.
Challenge.
at the
I know, but.
high school,
No.
and we brought it
No.
in from, brought the town into it. And we ran into a little problem. We kept getting a complaint from a young lady up in not Shaker Lane, but King Street. She was saying that she was getting awake every night because a truck would hit and it would wake her up. So one night we decided we were going to go find her. She was telling the truth. Not that we didn't believe it, but we couldn't figure the noise. So we got the police to block traffic at 5 o'clock, and both ways, and we got a straight board, and Rich, I, and
Jimmy was there.
Jimmy Clyde were laying down on King Street for a good half hour, measuring how much that thing was bent. And I came home, told my wife, and she said, "You could have got hit by a car." I said, "No, the cops had them all stopped." So
Joe, what's up there, wanna get a picture?
okay, go ahead. Okay? I won't tell any more stories, particularly about, I won't tell them.
There was one more thing, when you took over or first came on this committee, there were 3 buildings that were in failure with the septic systems, the middle school, the Russell Street, and the town hall here.
Yep.
And so that's what Joe inherited. And we got all 3 buildings back online with a brand-new sewer system, connecting it to the high school.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a real task.
You looked out okay, didn't you?
It certainly did. All right. Well,
Thank you. That's not enough?
A couple of joint topics with the Permanent Municipal Committee. I don't know who's your spokesman. Steve, are you
I'm the chairman.
you're the chairman now? Tough act to follow.
Yep, absolutely. I don't have the war stories that he had.
Not yet.
Yeah.
We always enjoyed hearing them the first time anyway.
All right, Keith, unless it's a setup I'm unaware of, the floor I'd like to give to the Permanent Municipal Building Committee Chairman Moore.
Okay, thank you very much. PMBC reorganized in May. I was elected chairman. Bob is vice chairman. Rich is the clerk, and Daryl is our school board committee member. We're a 7-member committee operating with only 4 members currently.
I was unaware that, who's it moved out of town?
Bill Cole.
No.
Carl.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Carl.
Carl.
Carl?
Carl.
Where did he move to?
New Hampshire.
Really?
Yeah.
New Hampshire,
He's
Florida.
always a mountain climber.
Yeah.
He bought a house up in New Hampshire, and he's also relocating in the winter to Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're down 3 members, so if there's anyone that's in the audience or watching on television that's interested.
We have a
Oh, good. Okay.
No, I didn't suggest, I hate to out him online, but I don't know who's worked with Jim Franco in the past, but he is super. When he was involved with school projects in the past, he kind of got it from all angles. Former superintendent of schools, didn't use, yeah, lived in Hartwell Avenue now.
Oh,
It's just a
well,
thought.
we need some more bodies.
Yeah, I mean, there's skill sets you need. That's the other thing too, is, you know, yeah.
What's common sense, being able to tell stories.
I mentioned to Jim Carr, I thought he was interested in it, but
Yeah.
Well, he's already on light and water too, but that doesn't.
I talked to Charlie Ellis. He was interested, but now he's pretty much involved in,
He's the chairman over
He's the
the,
chair.
yeah.
right. So,
Well, the public is hearing us, we still have 3 vacancies right now, which we need to fill. And it's an
Right.
important committee, I mean, the work you folks do, you know, done well, doesn't get noticed, done poorly, we're in court and we're in arrears, so,
correct. So anyway, I'd like to turn this next section over to Daryl. He does the project tracking sheet. He initiated it. He keeps it up to date. That's the sheet that you have up there. Yeah. So I'd like to have him talk to that.
Should have printed it smaller so that you didn't have to get those glasses out a little bit more. Yeah, so what I have broken down here is the first section has got sort of the pre-FY17 projects, pre-FY18 projects that haven't closed out yet. The biggest one hanging out right now is the Shaker Lane Univent project to finish up. That one's running behind just due to how much time it will require to finish that project up. So we talked to Steve Mark at the school department to, he needs to hire some engineering services to help get that project, the specs up to date, as well as the project oversight. So we're just told him to work that into the process there. The rest of them, you can see the high school painting and cracks are done. That money is all set to be released back out of the budget for reallocation. Paving projects are complete. The roof, the RTUs, and the town hall site, we're awaiting the final invoices, and those projects should be in the process of wrapping up there. So once those wrap up, the excess funds can then be released back back into the town budget there. Slide down just a little further is the FY18 projects there. So let's see, it looks like most of the school ones are complete. The Shaker Lane, Russell Street and Shaker Lane classroom painting is ongoing. I think the PRs for that's been issued and the crews are getting scheduled to work that there. What we've found is based on the final invoices for those projects, there was an additional $39,000 available from the school
projects that could be reused on other activities. As we went into the 19 projects, currently the plan was to schedule, let me get the right project here, the Russell Street pavers over 3 years to fix the sidewalk in the front there. What we recommended doing was using the extra funds from the 39K and just get that project done in 1 year so that we don't have that pending for 2 more years with it.
Yes, Steve Mark was able to get an economy of scale, get a very good price for that, do it this year. So
Just as
that
one
would-
project.
That would be our recommendation.
Well, they're replacing the concrete curbs with what?
Pavers.
No, that's the,
No,
middle school? That's a middle school.
It's grass.
Yeah, he's talking about the middle school, right?
I guess.
That's the
Granite
highway
curb.
department's doing that job.
Yeah.
They're putting granite in?
Granite, yeah.
Yeah, there's several projects, keeping them all straight is a little challenging sometimes because there's little bits that need to be done at all the schools there. Let's see, there's several projects for the town that, because we've been short, we're actually, don't know if we've got them really underway at this point, because they were getting started as Bill was leaving the board. So some of them gapped, which is the vault, air conditioning, the town hall entrance. I believe most of the carpets have already been installed, and there's some sidewalk and curb repair that's actually being delegated out to the highway department. I think that's also taking care of some of the school projects there. But anyway, those are typical of projects that we're not able to get to at this point. And then we just slide into the approved 19 projects, FY19 projects. We had one come up late, which was replacing the high school fire panel for about $40,000. So what we're going to do is defer the $50,000 high school painting, ongoing classroom painting project, slide that money down and make sure we take care of the fire panel this year and not push that out for a future project there. Most of the rest of them, Steve has already issued the PRs for, or they're in process on it there. And then again, there's the 2 town projects that haven't gotten kicked off yet for the Phase 1 roof replacement, which roof is that?
It's the water department.
Water department.
Yep.
And then the salt shed pieces there. So those haven't been started yet. And again, those would be the ones that would be needing some more assistance to effectively manage for it. So that's sort of where we're at with most of the projects. And like I said, we're trying to keep an ongoing tally. So a little tough sometimes balancing the multiple books, the multiple people managing the projects
Is
here.
the common theme here that you need more hands on deck to be able to do these jobs? The money's there, you know what you
Yeah,
need to do.
we were really concerned about, there was quite a few school projects there, and Steve is getting a little overworked, so we're looking at supplementing him by letting him use some of the money for engineering services. I think one of the keys, though, is time during the day to work on to provide oversight on these projects. And many of us are exceptionally challenged in terms of the time during the day to spend on if there's any on-site
So you need a couple of
oversight.
members who have that availability, ideally.
That would be helpful, but also we're looking at the facilities manager coming on board in January may be able to take some of that responsibility also.
That was actually precisely the question I was going to
Yeah,
ask, is
yeah.
what role do you see the facilities manager playing in, say, some of these smaller board projects?
Well, especially with the schools, Steve Marks this is not his.
Yeah, he's the business manager, he's not the construction manager
So.
for it there. The other part would be is many of these projects are now requiring, making sure that the proper bid packages are put together during, with all the proper contracting language. And again, I think making sure that somebody that's paying attention to that is critical. They're coordinating the bids coming back. Some of it is being done at night, but the daytime interactions on that is exceptionally difficult for folks.
Okay, do you have any questions on the,
I'm just gonna jump in. So there's a lot of communities that are putting stuff out to bid and things like that, and I'm just gonna reach out to Tom. Our other communities, not every community has a permanent municipal building committee. It falls on the laps of like the procurement manager or who it is in the community, is there a boilerplate bid package or something that we could kind of have assembled that would make it more streamlined for the PNBC?
Yeah, so you have a boilerplate bid package that you use that we've worked.
Just tweak it left and right.
Yeah, but and sometimes it is a tweak and sometimes it needs a little bit more than a tweak. But yeah, I don't think that's the problem.
No, it's the engineering and the technical aspect of working with that you need somebody paying attention to. It's not technically the contract language, it's the whole package.
Right, it's the attachments to the
You
contract.
know, I mean, I don't know how much time in terms of even just dealing with the specifications on the roof repair for the town, in terms of getting the package out to the engineering firm that's gonna do the design and then reviewing it, and then incorporating the language back into the boilerplate to issue the
Well,
contract.
and I would say that putting together good specs is only half of it. I would presume if we're having trouble finding the time to put together good specs, we're also having trouble finding the time to do the post-construction and mid-construction inspections that ensure we're getting the quality that we want. Is that,
Well, typically
are we finding time to do at least that?
Typically, we have an engineering firm that's providing those services. But for example, on the fuel, what was it,
Yeah.
the fuel,
The fuel tank,
the fuel tanks over at the
the
DPW? Rich went through those thoroughly and made hundreds of comments
yeah.
on the specs.
You know, it's just carelessness on the part of engineers, and it's not rampant in the industry, but it's there. It's human error, and you need a set of eyes from the town, because it's our money that's being spent.
So we've got an engineer on the books, so I would advise, and I know probably for sidewalks and the paving, things like that, Chris was involved, but I would say that he's a resource that should be used. That was part of the plan when we proposed bringing an engineer on board, that it was gonna alleviate a lot of the outside green engineering, or whoever it happened to be, paying that extra fee for the outside engineering services, because we have an engineer in-house. So I would recommend maybe leveraging that a little bit more as well.
Do you have that relationship established yet? Or?
Well, Chris did that with the middle school project.
Okay.
He engineered basically all that and did a plan, so he saved us a significant amount of money by doing that, so.
How about the little stuff?
You know, I think it becomes a workload issue on some of the little stuff with Chris too. You know, I know Mayor would like them to do with site plan reviews, and it's only so much that he can get done, so.
You know, and that's Anthony's absolutely right, that, you know, you can, only so many projects that one person can oversee at a time. And that's just the engineering aspect. You know, there's a project management aspect, the OPM. You know, you don't need to hire an OPM until you have a project that's worth $1.5 million, but it doesn't say that you can't hire an OPM if you have a $100,000 project. Now, an OPM is, in my opinion, is well worth the money you pay, because you got a set of eyes that are totally dedicated to the town, who understands the value of money and how, you know, how costs can be spent, you know, how the money can be saved.
And we discussed that during the green communities. There was that $250,000 project. We allocated an administrative dollar amount so Steve can get the assistance from, I forget the gentleman's name, his energy president at the school, so he could do additional time that can be paid for from the grant. So we recognize that that's important, and as we do things, we factor that in when staff here can't accommodate.
Yeah, and there's certainly a discussion to be had with Chris about the facilities manager position and how, what kind of oversight there, what kind of interaction we're going to have with the various boards.
So sorry to interrupt. One thing that I guess I'm not familiar with would be, you know, the range of skills for engineering support available from the town. There, you know, does he design roofs, or does he provide oversight to people that design roofs? You know, those balances. I don't have insights in terms of
I think
range of
part of it
skills
in
that's
general,
involved.
though, is that we think we've benefited greatly by having a PE who can oversee the other PEs that we hire
Right.
contractually, that whether it's, and that I'd have to say, there's been hundreds of thousands of dollars that have been saved at that level, just in Chris better managing our outside contractors. So that's probably the critical level. I'd say that's where we get the most out of our investment in Chris, is by him doing, cost control and the scope, prevent scope creep.
Yeah, we don't want him using his PE stamp for the town.
No. I mean, there may be the occasional project where that's appropriate because
small
he's been
one,
working on
maybe,
it,
yeah.
but not. But he's much better to be able to just oversee the engineering consultants.
Well, that's at least something to be revisited, that relationship. Jay?
Well, and I was going to say, I would expect or hope that our facilities manager position is analogous in that way, where Chris is able to provide oversight on the engineering and spec side. I would hope that our facilities manager is able to provide oversight on the contractor and implementation aspect of a lot of these projects, and hopefully find some savings, or at a minimum minimize any unforeseen costs.
I think it's critical to have the town's representative that's, on these, and that's making sure that we have a good handle on that, because, they're signing off on the work for the town at that point.
So is there a list of responsibilities for this, for advertising for this individual?
Actually, it's interesting you brought that up. I spoke with Mike Fontanella last week about sort of the timeline on this, and, I think it's bouncing around in the back of people's heads, but.
Good time to put input to that end, through Keith, to us, as job descriptions are being drafted, that sort of thing. So if you have ideas of the sorts of considerations we want to make sure are included when we're out searching, then.
Yeah, we'll put that on our agenda for our next meeting.
Okay.
Could I interject a thing here? Definitely have him MCPPO certified, Massachusetts official purchasing official certified. That's what I am. I believe that's what Steve is. That allows us to oversee a project for a city or a municipality like this. If he is that certification, then he understands what OPMs do for a living, and he can oversee some of the smallest projects that we have. We are lacking people on the ground to go to meetings, and we're lacking them on the ground to inspect projects as they're going, as they're being built. We don't want to spend the money hiring, paying the engineers to go out and inspect. And I'll tell you, I can't tell you how many hours I've been up on roofs or in buildings doing that exact job. As a member of this committee, it'd be great if I could have those hours back.
Well, I'd say
By hiring
that's something you need to include in the board memo to us, to do those sort of details.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay.
And in the interest of time, I just want to conclude that we're currently closing out the alumni field and the fire department. And that's about all we have to report.
Okay, there's nothing else on there was some, a week or two ago, I thought there was some flurries that there might be one of those we're not closing out nicely.
We're working on it, and
Okay.
we'll talk about that at a future meeting.
All right, so if there's a need to have an executive session in the future, we perhaps will see you there, but
Perhaps.
hopefully not. Board members?
Is this online? Is this on the town's website, this spreadsheet, this information?
We sent it over to Bonnie this morning.
Okay,
So I
just
don't
out of
know.
curiosity. It's great information.
Yeah.
Is this something,
to have.
maybe you can answer this, and if you can't, maybe Bonnie can. Is this something that, with the open checkbook, we'll be able to, residents will be able to access something like this?
In your packet.
It depends, yeah. I don't know the extent to which you're gonna have. Usually what I've seen in open checkbook, it just tells what the expenditures were, a dollar amount.
Right, but I mean, even here, right, we take the Shaker Lane site work, would they be able to see that we've got $38,000?
It might be possible, I don't know what Bonnie's worked out, she better
Just
get
a
to that
point of
question,
curiosity.
yeah.
Forget what.
Are there any projects coming up beyond 2019 that are in the pipeline?
One of the things that I want to task the committee with this year and before we put our capital program together for this coming fiscal '20, I want to do a 5-year needs assessment, more or less based on the EMG study from 2013, but also with current needs that come up through the various departments. So that's going to be another item that'll be on our next agenda.
All right. We were just having a little side-by conversation, as you might have seen, relative to one of the items we already spoke to tonight, committee memberships, and some of the folks who have expressed interest are present here tonight. We might try to get at least one of those spots filled for you before you leave. But I don't want to put somebody in the spot, too. I know we had a gentleman who we had appointed to some other positions earlier on in this cycle. Mr. Pellegrino, you're with us? Wasn't he here? Okay.
No.
All right. Then, at the very least, and not least at all, we have the very well qualified former chairman of the planning board, Ed Mullen, who is assistant building commissioner for the town of Concord.
Local building inspector for the town.
Local building inspector for the town of Concord, excuse me, who is interested in serving, and I guess we could at least give you 5 members to get going on, and we'd like to fill those other spots too. Is it okay, is the board okay with appointing Mr. Mullen to that, one of those 3 vacancies?
So moved.
I mean, while we're at it, can you put that on anything else?
That's lighter.
All right, I think I heard a motion and a second on that, so Ed, you're in, all right. Without any further...
Can we specify the term would either expire 2019 or 2023?
28.
Can we give him an indefinite?
23, well, yeah, he keeps dogging out of these things after a year or two, so we want him in there for the long haul.
23, yeah.
So the motion then is, moved and seconded that we, Board of Selectmen appoint Ed Mullen to a vacancy on the Permanent Municipal Building Committee for a term expiring in when? 2023. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Congratulations, Ed. There's one, we get 2 more to go. Gonna go back and read those ethic things all over again.
Maybe you'll pass it this time.
All right.
Don't hug in public, please.
We've got a long agenda, a couple of them are hearings which come up not too far off, so unless we have anything further, thank you to the building committee. You've had a tremendous year, and we don't lose sight of that. We get some great projects, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, the next topic on the agenda is for public input or members' updates for topics that are not otherwise on the agenda. I'll start with the public. If you've got a topic that isn't already provided for somewhere in the agenda, here's your chance. Hearing none. All right, board members, I've got nothing. Cindy?
I just want to mention that Middlesex County DA Marion Ryan was here, and she gave a talk about the opioid crisis. Selectman Joe Knox also attended that, and she gave some great information. So if anyone has not already watched that segment on LCTV, it's really worthwhile checking it out. She gave some insightful information and tips for how everybody can help combat the opioid crisis. I know Chief Pinard put together a PSA that is being circulated up. There it is. Just reminding people that they can safely dispose of their prescription meds at the Littleton Police Department. Just a reminder to do so. That's it.
Chase? Good. Chuck?
You jump to Joe, I'll try to pull something up.
Okay, Joe? I'll pass. Back to you, Chuck.
Nothing said, let's move on.
Yeah, so there is a Space Needs meeting this Wednesday evening,
Okay.
6:30 up in 307. We're going to be looking at our RFP process to see if we can get some conceptual designs of potential site on the slope, kind of take the lead of the library and the plans that they had put forward to locate the library on the hill site, on the slope site. There's some concepts kind of kicking around within the space needs group that maybe we could put 2 additional buildings on that slope site right behind the existing site. So we're just, we've got some concept designs from Mr. Stoddard, the town engineer, and we're gonna have some conversations about that and the process about going out to bid. So just wanted to give a quick update on that.
All right, thank you. I think we're all looking forward to updates on that topic. And thank you, planning board members, for bearing with us and hanging in. We enjoy coming to your meetings. We hope we make ours as exciting as we find yours when we come to visit. In any event, the number of topics have come up. Different members have requested that we get a dialogue going with the planning board on some of those overlap issues we have. Obviously, implementation of the master plan is one of them. We've had some turnover on the committee. We've had a, kind of a year one benchmark of accomplishment, I guess, and then prospects for the year to come. We've got a couple of areas where I think it's fair to say the specific concern of members of this board, some members anyways, that have expressed it in terms of both housing and the parking/transportation issues are, where do the town of Littleton's interests meet up with the state's interests, and whose interests are we promoting? And then finally, and I've taken these out of orders, is the, we're both sitting on the position of having to implement new regs with adult use marijuana. At this point, when this agenda was printed, I think our anticipation was the focus of that discussion would be on the piece of the puzzle that this board has, which is the host community agreement, some of the criteria which we have a opportunity to set. Your board's role is pretty spelled out in bylaw. Since that time, we've had the issue arise of growing facilities for recreational marijuana, and is there any regulation in place right now that governs that? So we've got a lot to talk about, and I don't know, Keith, do you have a suggestion of where we should start on that, or is there a member that wants to take a lead on this?
Whatever the board would like to.
Cindy, I know a
Sure.
couple of these, you want to take a lead on?
Sure, I'll take a lead. We'll start with housing. I know I expressed my personal feelings at your meeting last week, but I just wanted to talk about where we are now with the housing bylaws. I know a lot of thought and time and effort has been put into those bylaws, and the word intent seems to be pretty prominent with any of these discussions, what we intended to accomplish through those bylaws, but where we are now with those bylaws. Are we meeting the intent behind them? Do you feel, I just wanted to get your feelings about where we are. It's been almost a year later. We have some projects on the table, and your thoughts about where we stand. Yeah.
I guess I'll start since I'm the chair of the planning board. Thank you for inviting us, by the way. I think we had greater goals for the bylaw when we started out with them. We wanted to see the price of housing in Littleton come down for the seniors, without talking about specifics that we have in front of us right now. I'm not going to speak for everybody on the board, but I'll say that I don't think the density that we're getting is giving us the desired effect that we wanted. I think we want to see lower pricing for the seniors. It's more about trying to get it affordable for the people that have lived here all their lives, who want to downsize and still have some money left over to be able to still live in Littleton and still afford to live in Littleton. And I think we need to work on that a little more. I don't think we're there yet.
Okay.
That's my personal opinion.
Right.
What do you think work on that a little more means?
I think we need to kind of tweak the bylaw, because we're working with prevailing, as the market dictates everything. I'd hate to say that we'd have to put in real stiff guidelines or anything else like that, but I think we need to kind of direct it more. We're not seeing the corresponding cheaper prices by giving a higher density, which when we originally had Judy come in, that's the reason that we with the higher densities to try to get lower prices. And we're getting affordable, but we're getting that more through the inclusionary than we are through the actual bylaw itself. So I personally would like us to work on fine tuning the bylaw so that by November, when we come back on fall town meeting, we have a little more teeth and a few more regulations to try to get the affordability more in line with what I think we all hoped would be when we started.
So if I may, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely.
Paul Mullen, Vice Chair, Planning Board. In some instances, I agree with Mark. Ultimately, I'd like to see every senior residential development have every single unit affordable for our seniors here in town. But that is pie in the sky. The reality is that the developers are taking the risk. We incentivize them by writing this bylaw so that we would get proposals, and some people have stepped up with what they intend to be affordable. Now, there's a way to get more density and more affordability through the inclusionary zoning bylaw, which they can take advantage of. Nobody's come forward with those proposals yet. That being said, every proposal that we've had before us
You
meets
said those
the...
proposals, it's like a split between what, a 4 unit per acre, depending upon structural
Right,
style versus 8
so
unit
just
per acre?
talking density and affordability, they had to meet a 10% affordability rate, which puts every unit at $187,000 for affordable. So when that, in the affordable unit, then they can sell the rest at whatever the market will bear. Now, could we negotiate more affordable units through an incentive and inclusionary zoning? Absolutely. But we'd have to give an incentive to them. Do we give them more density, or do we give them something else? You know, there's a lot of different opportunities here. We worked really hard on this bylaw with the COA, and I'd hate to say that we need to tweak it or redefine it or put more teeth in it, because it's all there. We just need to access it and be good negotiators on behalf of the town of Littleton with the developers that make the proposals. That's my opinion as vice chair on the planning board. It's contrary to what Mr. Montanari says. Now, I think Mark and I work well together, and we have these debates constantly. But that being said, you know, I worked hard. I presented it on the floor with Marge Payne, you know, from COA, and I think we need to make sure.
It is a special permit, correct?
It is a special permit.
Okay,
So,
how does that affect, you know, your ability to, as a practical matter, how does it affect your ability to have sway over the proposals?
so there's portions of the bylaw that say, you know, it has to be beneficial to the town. Right, so that alone, we can say, hey, it's beneficial when you get to 20%. You know, the bylaw says you have to propose 10%, but there's some things in it that aren't beneficial, so you get up to 20%. Now we can make, you know, the other 10% a Littleton preference. So it could be a Littleton senior or 2 or 4 that gets a preference now. We can't put a preference on the first 10%. State law won't allow it. So.
I still disagree with them. I think that by adding the density, you're dropping the land cost of the properties. And think about it, the average cost of land in Littleton is $250,000. If you build one house, that's $250,000 for each house. If you can put 4 of them on there, that drops it down to $60,000 for each house. We're not seeing the corresponding drop in what the houses are ultimately going to sell for, because and that was a simplistic, I get it. I mean, I went to Littleton High School in '74, that's as detailed as I can get with it, but that's the simplistic approach. The land costs are going down as the density goes up. We're not seeing the corresponding drop in the price of the houses. We're seeing the market is going to drive this, and that's where I have a problem. I don't want to go down this road and put a higher density on a piece of property, with no guarantee that, A, the Littleton residents are going to even have a shot at it. It's going to be people from other towns that are going to downsize and have to come to Littleton because their $1 million house in Concord, you know, they can take that money and buy a $500,000 house in Littleton and then be able to live there comfortably. Our primary focus should be on the people that have been in Littleton paying taxes for God knows how many years, that they should be able to afford something and still have money to live without having to worry about whether they can afford trash bags to go to the dump with. You know, they should be able to live a good lifestyle because they've paid their dues to the town of Littleton, and that's where Mr. Mullen and I differ. I do agree that because it is a special permit, there are some things that we can do to it. I just still think we have to work on
You're both lucky that the voice of reason is right behind you.
Oh,
Peter's
Mr. Scott?
been trying to get into this conversation.
Oh, I'd have tried once, all right.
Notice how Anna positions herself right between the
That's called the eye of the storm, man. Peter, did you have something there?
Former chairman, former vice chair, just plain old planning board member now. Kind of nice sitting back and listening to all this. I agree with both of them, both Mark and Ed. But the problem ends up being it's threefold, I suppose. It's not our job to make sure that every elderly person in town has a place to live. God only knows what they did with their finances. But I would love to see everybody who is here stay here. To make something affordable, granted, Mark's math works pretty good, but you're building 4 places instead of 1 on a house, so you have extra foundation costs, extra siding costs, extra heating costs. So the cost per acre, per house per acre, does drop, but the cost of the house building it doesn't really that much. So even if you dropped it by $60,000 or $100,000 per lot, that's what you're taking off of it. We're still looking to try and get something affordable for the elderly. What is affordable? I think he said 187,000. I thought it was 287. It's 187. All right, so to go out and build something for $187,000 on free land, you're not going to do it. You're just not going to give somebody a 2-bedroom, 1,800 square foot house with nice flooring, nice siding, nice windows, nice roof. It's not going to happen. So somebody's going to have to take money out of their pocket in order to build these projects. The bigger the number of residences on an acre of land, their price definitely is coming down. But they're going to take money out of their pocket on 1 or 2 of these regardless. Now, I think, personally, we stood on town floor and some gentleman said, what's going to stop somebody from building 1,000 houses on 1 acre or whatever? And we stood up and we said, we're going to control it. We're going to make sure that doesn't happen. As a board, we said it. Well, what happens if, I'm done next year. So what happens if somebody else comes in and says, well, I want 50 houses an acre. People are screaming, we don't want 1 acre getting built on anymore. So what are you going to do to control that? I honestly think that what we got to do is try and keep the elderly exactly where they are. Because when they move out of their 3- and 4-bedroom house, or even 2-bedroom house, and they go to another 2-bedroom, who's moving into that 3-bedroom house? Who's moving into the 4-bedroom house? It's not another elderly person with no kids. Now, what costs us the most money in town? What is the biggest expense in town? Question? Answer? The school system. Jesus, I can answer my own questions. This is getting awful. So if we turn around and don't have somebody stay in their home, make it affordable for them to stay and not move out, isn't that a better deal?
Well, let me get Rosie in my perspective here. How many proposals have you actually seen so far? And to what extent have any of those proposals?
First 2 and then 3. One of them was.
Have they all dug in their heels, or are they willing to work with you?
They've all expressed interest in working with us. None of them have got a definitive answer for us, from us to go forward. At our last meeting, we got bamboozled a little bit by a memo that came down from supposedly another board. So we didn't do a lot of action or give a lot of advice in the last meeting because we were advised that they had to get through the Board of Health, and they were going to make more restrictive regulations. Now, whether that is or is not going to happen, we don't know. So we didn't do a lot in the last meeting to move forward with any of the proposals because of that memo that came down. Now, that being said, listen, there's ways to create more affordable housing, and it would be on town land and us funding it, or us giving the town land to a contractor and, and incentivize them.
We agree.
But that's not what this bylaw says. Right? This bylaw was written so that we could get something done for seniors.
Well, that's a good segue into at least one option or one active viability we have, and that's with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, where some of those pockets of money that are collected, we now have an entity that can turn those into units, and maybe there's a way to drive more land and money through these projects so that we can make that the thing that produces elderly housing on our terms.
Right.
Not elderly housing, but affordable housing on our terms. Anything, Hannah?
So I think for me being new to the board, but also the fact that this is a brand new bylaw for Littleton, taking it for a test drive, so to speak. We have to figure out where the sweet spot is in terms of making sure that every party that is participating in this, including the abutters, including all the other residents in town who drive by a particular development, that there's some level of satisfaction there. And we don't have that yet. And I think for folks who understand that change is inevitable, but we want to manage that change, that's good. We know that we have to work through this, and it's going to continue to necessitate people understanding each other's points of view. And we've had a couple of applicants who come forward, and if you have a checklist and you go through that in terms of what the bylaw says, there are a lot of areas where they haven't met it, and they come back around the next time and they meet a few more, but then there's another couple. So I think this is a timing issue in terms of just getting through it, because we haven't done this before. And I think that's important for everyone to understand. The town just hasn't done this particular work on this bylaw before.
We've never had a
So-
density like, oh, excuse me.
No, go ahead.
We've always been, all our open space, all our developments have always been a one-to-one swap. We're now, and that's why the Board of Health, I believe, is weighing in, because all of a sudden you're seeing 4 and 8 times the density on a single acre of property, and we've never had to deal with that. It's always been, if you did an open space and you had 30 acres and you get 25 houses, you cluster zone them and you got your 25. Now that same scenario could yield 75 or 80 houses there, and it's tough to get around the whole concept of what we're trying to do out there. Not just the affordable part of it, just the whole density issue.
Right, yeah, so a couple comments.
Just one more thing from me.
Sure.
If you turn around, and here's a question for you, as far as the Board of Health changing regulations or going, is that a preclude to forcing the town sewage on us, on the townspeople? Is that, is one?
You mean the sewer of the common?
Sewer of the common and then further down or whatever
I
is.
mean, as far as I'm aware, none of the proposed developments are anywhere near the sewering district. It doesn't have anything to do with the town sewer.
Okay, yeah.
I was just, I'm sorry,
Yeah, no,
it seemed, timing was a little funny.
Right.
Well, I mean, the timing of the show has been kicked around for 20 years. You can
Right.
pick any point in 20 years.
Right.
And we've always been focused on the commercial common center, with hopes of growing it out to some of the already developed residential area, but there's just not a lot of interest there yet. So it's just, that's, not going to happen in the short term, and it's hard to see where it goes in the long term. But as far as being a factor with these new developments, I don't see it.
Right. So I guess my concern is we have a lot of growth going on anyways in town with projects like Durkee Farm, just in general. So now we have this bylaw with the density component to it. So we're promoting or welcoming that much more housing in Littleton in exchange for a 10% affordable component. To me, is it worth the trade-off? I'm not really sure that I'm convinced that it is, just for 10% based on what it's going to bring in as far as additional housing units is one concern of mine. I agree with Peter, just having read the housing production plan and dealing with, working with the seniors. They do want to age in place, a lot of them, and that is definitely something to consider. That we've talked, I know we've had some discussions with the Council on Aging about that, about programs we could put in place to allow them to do that. Maybe they don't want to move out of their homes. But I think we definitely need options in town. But really the bottom line is that we want to sort of take care of our own. That was the whole point behind this. And I don't want to compromise the rural character of Littleton through this density housing component on top of the regular growth that we have and losing the open space piece of it. I just want to make sure our focus is in line with what we want to accomplish here and what we want to retain for Littleton and what we want Littleton to be, because we don't want to be Acton.
So if I may, Cindy, so there is an open space component in the bylaw that's 30% common open space. So there is an open space component in the bylaw. And I think that, in the housing choice initiative, if we don't try to maintain, I mean, we're getting accolades from the state currently about trying to maintain above the 10% affordable that we already have in town.
Right,
I certainly don't want to see us fall below that 10% and then
Right.
get another 40B thrust
Right.
at us.
Right.
Because that would be more painful than anything that's been proposed to us already.
right. No, and I
There's a
understand that.
balance that we're all trying to do here, and when we came up with this scenario provided level entry housing, cave style, ranch style, whatever you want to call it, you know, with age-in-place design, or, you know, listen, if I could make them all affordable, I would tell
and I
every
know that.
applicant in front of us,
Right.
hey, great, you're gonna 100% affordable, every unit's gonna be 187,000.
I know.
It would be
It would be a
wonderful.
dream,
You know,
right.
I
And
just
we could
don't-
vet it to Littleton residents. It'd
Right.
be perfect.
I
And I
just don't
get
know how
that.
we do that
Right.
without stumbling over our feet legally and every other aspect.
Right,
It's
so
a
are there
bylaw.
other ways to maintain what we call our 40B destiny, working with the stock that we currently have now, the affordable housing stock that we have now, to ensure that they maintain their affordability status?
So in that, I think if we move forward with one or two proposals, one, we have the balance to keep us moving. Two, if we can get more people through the inclusionary zoning, all right, where they come in under a certain number of units, and I think it's 19, if they have less than 19 that they're proposing, then they can buy out their affordable, and that goes into our affordable housing trust fund.
Right.
So if somebody proposed a 19-unit subdivision and paid into our inclusionary zoning, or to our affordable housing trust fund, bought out any affordable units that are required, then we would have a lot of money, and then we can turn around, we can either, you know, propose to a contractor, you know, or developer, hey, we've got a piece of land, we'd like you to, you know, for $1 a year lease or $1 for a 100-year lease, you know, build us 20 units or 40 units,
Or
all
buy
affordable.
existing
Right.
housing.
Absolutely.
Right.
All those options are there, but
Right.
I think I think what we're doing right now, and I think it's good that we're being cautious and not just accepting one, but I think we need to work with somebody to get one on the books so we can keep moving forward. And in that one, and I don't care which way we go, I just want to see us moving forward.
Right.
I want to make,
But
I know that
I would caution though, that the first one that goes out the gate is going to be the most important one to dictate the success of the bylaws. So to simply say, we want to get one done, masks the significance of that one. And it's got to be right, and it's got to be consistent with the town. And frankly, we've also got to be willing to look at it and identify what could or should have been done better in that, and whether that means amendments to the bylaw, or it means changes to incentives, or it means using some amount of resources to incentivize a different type of behavior. I think that's fine, but simply moving something forward to say that we got one done doesn't necessarily help us unless that one is particularly good.
I totally agree.
And I do too, but what I'm saying, if we just keep shutting the door on everybody that keeps walking in front of us, just saying, nope, nope, all right, this portion is good, we gotta keep working with them. Right now, the last time the applicants came before us, we told them go away, because Board of Health isn't gonna approve what you said anyway.
So one of the things that people are struggling with is the fact that town meeting floor, what we heard was planning board can
Control.
Can control essentially the age groups that are able to access these houses.
State won't allow us to do that. The state changed their regulations a few years ago. We can't age restrict it and then count it to our 10%. And once we age restrict it, guess what? We don't get to count it to our 10%.
So, I mean,
So 40Bs keep coming in.
Perhaps that was something that I fundamentally misunderstood.
Judy called it
Age targeting.
age targeting by design.
Right, and I understand that, but some lower thresholds don't really go after that demographic. So we keep saying that we're developing senior residential zone housing, and we're not. We're just developing small market rate housing.
Exactly, that's exactly what the
And
problem is.
So we keep talking past the point right here, which is that this isn't gonna be senior residential housing.
We have no guarantee.
If I can, the concept of, and you're talking to a lot of people in town, is that we're actually promoting growth. And
Right.
They don't understand, the normal person out there doesn't understand that a landowner has a right to sell their land. And they actually come to different people and say, how do we stop this? How do we stop this development? How do we do this and this type of thing? So the concept out there is we're just allowing all this to happen and there's no planning being done. And if there is planning, we're actually looking at more dense, and that's what the normal person sees.
Right. Well, it's really development friendly, the way the bylaws are structured, because of the density component.
And there's a reason you aren't going to get builders in unless you make it advantageous to them, so
Right.
you made it advantageous for them to come in.
Well, we made it advantageous in a lot of different ways too. One of the other things that we were told was, we're gonna pass this bylaw and we're going to see proposals that have a variety of different housing types on one, right? So folks will be able to go from a cottage
Age in
style
place.
dwelling, right, to truly age in place, and, I mean.
So we had an informal discussion
We're not
with a
really saying
developer
this.
that was proposing something like that, and he came before us at the last meeting and said he's still trying to work on getting the age in place, so he can do the houses, he can do the garden style apartment, but he doesn't have the ability to do the memory care or the assisted living. So he's trying to find those people to work with him on a fairly large site. Now, that site has a bunch of opportunities to do other things too, and we have some monies to do a study there. So we're hoping that he will work with us in going through that study process, and allow him to build the one commercial component that he wanted to do and some parking to keep him viable in the game, but not come forth with a proposal until we finish our study as well.
Let me jump in here.
So that was there, that option was proposed. It's just so big and honestly, a lot of people were taken back by the density in that. So we're looking at two smaller ones, and they're small enough where they can't propose all those types of housing. They can propose one type. Now, in that one type, we have all kinds of ways of controlling that development. It's still there. We still have, does it fit Littleton? Is it viable?
All right, I'm going to jump in here. It's a very important dialogue. It's a good dialogue. We're not going to resolve it tonight. We actually have three more topics to broach with the planning board. We're significantly behind schedule. We have other important business before us too. So I'd kind of like to suggest that on the specific topic we were just talking about, you folks are first dealing with your first applicants, but it's teaching us all, what it means in reality, and then from there, hopefully we can learn in time to address it at a timely meeting, at a town meeting in the near future. So that dialogue is important. Maybe the next time we meet at one of your meetings and continue this, and maybe you'll be a little bit farther along in some of your discussions. I have two specific housing questions I wanted to at least get on the table, and then touch briefly on these other topics that we had addressed. The Mass Housing Grant scope, Cindy, I think that was something specifically you had brought up, or was it not? The scope of the grant?
Yeah, no, that was all in the packet, I believe.
Okay, and
Yeah.
then the Affordable Housing Trust, my point there was we have a vacancy on that committee, and if we want that to really work, it just looked to me that we should be trying to get somebody with a background in banking, finance, or development to sit on that committee to add some heft. If we start putting money in that kitty and we start getting into the business of developing our own housing, then we need to get somebody on that board who understands the business end of it. Just a thought on that part, but I don't know if there isn't a specific question or comment relative to the Mass Housing Grant scope, then I'll move on.
Right, yeah,
Okay.
no,
All right, master plan implementation goals. I know you were raising your hand on the other question, Mike, so maybe I'll give you a chance to dance and segue from one topic to another, but whatever point you were going to make, please go ahead and do it, and you can also maybe remind us where we're at on our commonality with the MPIC goals.
Okay. I guess the best place to start is the latest and greatest. The preliminary results are coming in from the workshop that was held Tuesday evening, in which the residents, there are quite a number of them, a fairly diverse group, and from the demographics, it looks as if they reflect what Littleton really is today, as it was in contrast to what it was even 10 years ago. And the results are very clear that, at least at this location, I'm talking about the Common, the acceptance of higher density is very high. In fact, one of the scenarios made it very clear that they were talking about both commercial, in fact, the model shown to them was commercial on one level and housing above it. And the key thing was, they're called stacking, and there was an acceptance of, in that space, of higher density. So I'm just commenting, the only comment I want to make is very often the issue about what the Littleton may or may not, the residents are prepared to accept, may depend heavily on where it is, as much as anything else, what's appropriate for that region. And not all places are created equal. Number two, I don't know to what extent yet the Common is prepared to offer more than diversified choices of housing. I can't go as far as making senior because we don't have the economic analysis done yet that would suggest it's viable. As far as the other things that the committee is working on outside of the Common, thanks to many committees, I just want to say that the work is being done by other committees, such as yours, such as the Planning Board and others, and progress is being made. I think the most difficult assignment has fallen, ironically, to the Planning Board having to deal with targeted senior housing. It's the most difficult, and basically every town is facing it. And there's a reason why, just say the economics are showing, and sociology is showing, the gradual migration of population from here to other states in the country where housing costs are considerably lower, and the people migrating there are the folks who are preparing to age as well as aging. So there's a reason the market forces are not in our favor. I just want to point that out. Not at all in our favor, but the least we can do is make best use of particular locations. So this is a long haul struggle.
Well, thank you. That's a great, succinct transition. I'll ask our planning board colleagues, you're our partners in this process. As we well know, and Mike just elaborated on, the consultants are on the ground, and the Common, is in the crosshairs for deliberation, and the public was very engaged. It was a great turnout the other night, so I don't know if there's any individual or collective thoughts you guys have to what you're seeing so far, where you think we should be going with the master plan process in the next year, beyond what we've already established.
I think having been at that meeting that the Master Plan Implementation Committee did and seeing the turnout that we got, then maybe we should start addressing some different needs in the Common as we talk about where we're going before November's town meeting. Maybe we should start looking at that as well as tweaking what we have in front of us as well.
I'll tell you, it wasn't just the size of the crowd that impressed me, and you'd probably noticed this too. There were property owners in the room, and that was significant.
It was encouraging, yes. We also do want to have a dialogue with you at some point about some of the town-owned land, about maybe possibly doing something for seniors on town-owned land.
Sure.
Is there, as far as the planning board is concerned, a lot of times it's hard to decide what you guys are doing so we know what's going next. Have there been discussions going on with the Kimball Farm place or the
No
abandoned 40B?
discussion since what, May? Direct discussion?
So there's nothing in the works for anything over there that we're not informed
Not
of?
involving the
Executive session
Not that we
things?
know that you don't know.
Nothing active, and I know this.
How do you know what I don't know? You know?
Discussions were had, about 3 or 4 of them over the course of the past year, but it didn't come to anything that is on the table.
It would seem like that property is particularly be advantaged involved by the master plan process, where you're trying to come up with a vision for what property owners could do. And there's
You want
one
an
property-
undeveloped property
there's
close
one
to the
property
common,
owner
you
that I
can't
think-
do much more than that,
Yeah,
so.
there would be some
yeah.
time well spent to see what Mr. Kimball wants to do.
Yeah, okay, I'll start with that, and then go Mike.
So I think part of what is going on overall with the Master Plan Implementation Committee is, in addition to working on Littleton Common, there have been other connection points that I think are important because they all work well together in terms of the housing, the space needs study, and then also the zoning assessment. So I think of the initial 7 that we took a look at from a year ago, 4 of them have continued to work together and should continue to do that.
Great, all right. I'll, unless there's more members who want to, oh, I'm sorry, Mike.
I would just recommend that contact be made with the ZBA ASAP if you want further information about the property referred to earlier.
Just,
Yeah, sure.
just talking about housing and everything, I know that, I think Joe submitted a goal for us to take a look at the large parcels that are out there, so that Turkey Tree Farm kind of snuck up on us. I mean, they didn't sneak up on us, they took out chapter land, so we were kind of handcuffed, we couldn't do anything. We did as much as we could with the people, with the cricket property. And there's, we're within our authority, within our power, we're trying to be aware of the large parcels that are out there, so that I don't think there's anybody on the Board of Selectmen or on the planning board that is looking for sprawl, or looking to, just have all kinds of development. But there's also a balance that we have to have. Development's going to happen. There's going to be some attrition, and it happens automatically. We have to try to manage it the best that we can with the tools that we have to manage it. And I think, Joe, you specifically talked about a goal where we should be kind of keeping an inventory of the large parcels that are out there, because if something came down.
Don't have to talk about it now, but one of the things my goal is that a pair of us could meet with different large landowners to get a feeling of what they plan for the future, so we know what's happening, and so that would prevent the exact thing that you're talking about, so we could prepare ahead of time, and maybe somewhere along the line, hopefully come up with some money. If they were planning on doing something, maybe the town could come up with some money to buy those before it actually happens. And that's a goal we can talk about later on.
Yeah,
right?
maybe it could be looking at the master plan housing goals. Number 1, which we've talked about, allowing greater density where you want it, where the town wants it. And if you're getting proposals where the density that's being proposed isn't where you want it, maybe that's kind of, that's problem number 1. And if there are proactive ways that we can do, be more of a player, maybe the way some communities help direct development in particular areas is either through some kind of contribution from the town, either in terms of land that the town owns that could be developed, or targeting the use of available funds, say whether it's community preservation or affordable housing trust fund. In our case, to say that here are certain areas of town where if you will do what we want, then we will make funds available to us, but we won't do it elsewhere.
I guess I just want to make sure that people are aware that we're not up there trying to jam as many housing developments down residents' throats. It's much to the contrary, but we can only do what we can do. It's your meeting, so.
Yep, no, that's fine. On this topic, or generally this topic, Mr. Crowley, and then I'm going to try to move on to the last 2 joint topics.
Oh, good, thank you. On the issue of zoning, to speak to pre-planning for future development, my thoughts were that from the train station south, we could create an overlay that would allow great density down there, because it's near a train station.
So Taylor Street in that area?
Taylor Street,
Yeah.
in
Well,
that
that's very
area.
much in the planning board's, the master plan committee's
Yeah.
wheelhouse as the next area of concentration, so.
You know, that would, the largest house would be, say, a 1,500 square foot house. We're about to institute the tiny houses in the building code, and so that'll be available, an option available very soon in Massachusetts.
You're talking about statewide.
Yeah, and legitimate houses you can build on foundations. And the home builders in Massachusetts are very, very anxious to do developments like that right now. So south of the train station would be a great place, I think, for targeting density.
Once we have a thunderous success with the common area, that is the next big target. There's no reason it can't be on a similar but parallel track, a little bit, a couple of club cars behind.
And one other point, if I may, is that you can't build a house for under $200,000. You just cannot. So, and if you're extracting one or two houses out of a 28-acre subdivision and calling that affordable, you know, it's not going to be affordable because these houses will be big. So that doesn't, that's a system that's a road that's going to have a dead end in terms of what we want to try to achieve here. But if you can get money from a developer for an affordable component and put it into the trust fund, then you can work with that same developer down the line and say, I want you to build 4 small houses, 1,000 square feet, on the same spot that you're going to build 2 houses of regular size, and give them the
That
money
level
to
of
do that.
detail is what we need at that next juncture when we get into that discussion. You're right, I think you're right on the right track, but we're not gonna be able to codify it and pass it tonight.
No,
But I'm glad, you know, you're on the track of a solution.
The thoughts are out there.
Yeah, all right. On the marijuana front, now, specifically, kudos to the planning board and everybody else in the town who was involved. We got ourselves well positioned to be ready to do what the state wanted us to do, to be able to be positioned to issue licenses by July 1st. We've got the adopted bylaw approved by the state. And we had our first, at least informal applicant. I don't know, I guess they wouldn't come to you because they have to come to us first. And that's where we're at with the host community agreement, which is a topic we didn't spend as much time talking about. And it's potentially an area where we get to exercise a little bit more latitude than you folks have with the very, you know, specific terms of your bylaw. And I'm not criticizing, I think it may well blend out nicely for the town where we have we have a broad enough bylaw to provide for the opportunity, and then we have the host community agreement, which gives us a chance to kind of vet folks and put it to the town's needs. I don't know have you guys had any discussions since the bylaw passed in the spring, or any approach or any reason to readdress the subject since its passage?
We met informally with you about potential sites, and that's about as far as we've gotten with it. We don't have anybody come, obviously you don't have anyone coming forward with
Yeah,
a
at some point,
specific
we've got to get some guidance from council, you know, and take it offline to start thinking about what we could do in terms of
Just one of the
criteria.
Yeah, one of the practical issues was, since there are only, for retail adult use, that there's only 2 of them, and how do we want to do that? First come, first serve? Do we want to be a little more proactive? Even when we had the one adult
Competitive process.
medicinal marijuana available, we timed that, well, we happen to have multiple expressions of interest, but we timed that where we had back-to-back public hearings on the same night,
Right.
and the selectmen chose which one they wanted to do business with. So being proactive about what those 2 might be was one thing. Another topic was that that's for retail. What about for cultivation? If someone's approaching about cultivation, is that there's no limits? There's no limits in the bylaw on cultivation, and how do we want to, or the other uses.
Can I take that turn and put Tom on the spot? I mean, since we were looking at this last in the specific context of the retail, we've now had at least the rumor of another cultivation site coming for recreational purposes. Is there anything in our own bylaws or in the state laws that provide guidance or protection on that, or what? How is that governed?
So I'm happy to look into it.
Yes.
And report back to you, but I don't know that I'm prepared to address it tonight. I
do
do think
new hot potato. We just
No, I mean, my understanding was that we did restrict it to industrial.
That's only for retail, that's not for the cultivation. Cultivation for recreational use.
Well, the
Medicinal.
Right.
I think the adult use are in the areas. that
Oh,
we
and
said.
we didn't set a zone for residential.
I think that those
recreational
zones are where all the uses can go. And they can't, the uses, no matter what they are, they can't be outside of
Those 2 zones?
those zones.
No, that's the opposite. Like the whole industrial A area down by the train station was an area that we said we were willing to allow non-retail marijuana uses. Testing labs, processing facilities, so on and so
So at a
forth.
minimum, we need to start thinking
Yeah,
about
so-
it. Do we want to, do something as simple as applying the same thing we did for medicinal cultivation plants to recreational, or is there a reason to do otherwise?
So recreational would mean adult use, and I would think that that would be the right thing to do, would be to put it in the same zone as medicinal, because we went through the process then of selecting what we thought was the appropriate area for growth.
Right.
So whether it's medicinal
Shouldn't
or
make any
adult
difference, really.
use, it should be in that zone. And so if we need
The
to
answer would be
propose.
the fall town meetings,
Now-
to bring something.
So there,
No.
you get your homework.
Now, if
But
we're
back to
gonna
bylaw.
look at modifications during
From tonight.
fall town meeting for the marijuana bylaw, is there appetite to consider restrictions or qualifications on the size and scope of the retail facilities? And here's why I ask that. These two areas are very different in terms of traffic flow, in terms of what a shop might look like, and so on. And, in the common, I think, or at least I did envision, my grandfather's smoke shop, like, little, small, kind of out of the way place, not that big of a deal. You hear, hundreds of customers kicked around and you go, oh, okay, well, that's a very different thing than, my grandfather's smoke shop. So I would like to know what we could or couldn't do there to control the type of.
Are we not operating, Tom, under the assumption that we can address some of those things in the criteria for the HCA that are not otherwise provided for in the bylaw?
But does that then back us, this is sort of similar to our HCA and then a project goes to the planning board. If we bury too much in the HCA, then we're providing essentially, we're jumping over the planning board and superseding your role and responsibilities there if we start packing it full of all of the special requirements.
We need to work together, that's why we have joint meetings.
And I think in that scenario one, as you said about, the senior residential, it's gonna be our first one. We should take the time to get it right. So working together, I look forward to it.
It's gonna be philosophical more than anything else, is do you wanna have a marijuana facility in the common? Do you want a small one? When the informal discussion that we had with the one company that did wanna, and then maybe they still wanna pursue it, they were talking a large facility because they're gonna anticipate that many people coming there, and they want them inside rather than outside. So they did want to pick it. I kept thinking about it like a little smoke shop. That's not what they're kind of telling us. The economics is going to be such that this is going to be busy. Yeah, 5,000 square foot facility.
And so to me, there's a substantive difference between out towards Ayer versus out towards,
So
the common.
going back to that informal discussion, I was a participant in it. There's 5,000 square to the first floor of the building they were talking about, and they were taking 1/3 of that 5,000. And the rest of it, they were hoping to put into, if a smart sewer
Well-
came into a restaurant.
At a minimum, what I would say here is that what we may want to do is include in the bylaw some discussion of a traffic study or something like that, because you're right, the actual size is less important than the traffic and how it fits with the common, so.
So I think-
Making them go through that exercise and understanding what it means and modifying what they're doing to bring it in line with what we want in terms of traffic flow could be a really important consideration.
So I think as a retail establishment, what I've seen proposed or even discussed is very different from a smoke shop. They make it look almost more like a spa-type medical facility where you go in, you talk about your ailments, and/or you go in and say, I like this feeling, and then they bring you over here and say, well, this will make you happy. And it's much more of a spa treatment than you get smoke shop treatment. No, beech nuts over there, and, Pall Malls are over there,
All right, well, again, that's, we probably should try to see whether or not through council and commonly whether or not there's something we need to do to be on the warrant for the fall to address that open area. Rich, last comment on this subject.
Sure. When the police came before us, when I was on the planning board, they said they'd like to see it in an open place where there's a lot of traffic, not tucked away on Taylor Street or some place where there's no traffic. And the Point's a good location for it. So someplace like that where they would be very visible.
Yeah. They run into their own issues. I don't want to belabor this point, but they made it clear, and it's not a big secret, is that, the federal government takes a very different look at it than the state does, which means that when they get into the business of locating, they almost, as a rule, have to find locations that they can purchase and not lease, because banks won't lend to establishments that would host that, so that limits a lot of the property. Yeah, it limits a lot of the property that are available to them, but good consideration. All right, final topic for the planning board selectmen joint meeting, and that's parking and traffic, I think specifically relative to the train station. And I know you guys have had that on your plate too. And we're, of course, interested in all its ramifications. I don't know, Cindy, you wanted to jump on this as well? I know you had,
Yeah.
you had
I have some
asked
thoughts
for
about this,
Okay.
yeah. So I was just reading, just in general observation after being at your meetings and listening to residents voice their concerns about traffic, increased traffic flow on Foster Street due to increased usage of the MBTA station. And I understand that, we don't have that much control over it. What concerns me is I feel that the state, is promoting Littleton to increase parking at its train station, at the Foster Street train station, because of our proximity to 495 and Route 2. I feel we're an easy target for the state to want to utilize that station for its needs. But what's the result on our community? By increasing the parking, we currently have, I think, 246 spaces there. We're talking about adding another 150, possibly with a proposed project there, which I like that component of it only because those spaces could possibly be vetted strictly for Littleton residents. But a big concern is how many Littleton residents are actually using the MBTA commuter rail. Or we're catering to surrounding communities. We're catering to Acton, Air, Bedford, Shirley. They're all coming to Littleton, and they're all coming down Foster Street. The state put together this report in 2014 where they're encouraging us to increase their parking, but they say right in the report, we don't want to invest in a new train facility. You really should have sidewalks and the proper infrastructure, yet they don't want to give us the money really to install those. They talk about, creating bike paths and things like that so people can bike to the train station. No one's biking down Foster Street to get to the train station. People don't even want to walk down Foster Street. So I'm just concerned about that location personally. And what benefit do we get as a community? I feel like we're getting the burden of having the train station where it's located, but we're not getting any financial benefit from its location. They just raised their user prices, their parking prices. They're reaping the benefits financially while we get the infrastructure burden. And that's just an observation on my part and just something I think we should all be conscious of. Going forward, I know we have the grant proposal. We're going to focus on that end of town, which is part of the master plan. It would be great to revitalize Taylor Street, Foster Street. We refer to it as West Littleton. But I just think as far as the parking needs go, I really would be interested to see how many Littleton residents really are using the commuter rail station to commute, compared to how it's being utilized by surrounding communities.
So my understanding is that quite a few Littleton residents do park there.
Right.
A lot of new residents in the Durkee Farm estate are actually walking over there
Okay.
at their own risk, but they are walking over there.
Right.
As a planning board, we did a site walk on that piece of property due to the parking proposal and the commercial component that was proposed to us. We went out, we walked Foster Street, and it's scary. There's no doubt about it that
Right.
that street needs to be improved. It needs sidewalks. It needs all kinds of things to make it safe. And kudos to the residents that did talk to us that they are willing to give up some frontage in order to have a
Right.
sidewalk, which you never hear. But they realize that the state has put this burden on them as residents and us as a town.
Right.
And, with the infrastructure study that hopefully we can complete in a timely fashion, we can come up with a way to, one,
make Foster Street a benefit, make the train station a benefit to our town and not a burden.
Right.
With any of the proposals before you, do you have the leverage, or can you find a way to exact the leverage over time that if additional spots go in, that they come with some impetus to push the traffic up to Taylor Street and onto the highways, or to direct it to come from there? Right now.
Traffic circle would do
Well, it's not on Foster Street, but it just seems like too much of the state's emphasis is on increasing the volume with little regard to what Littleton gets out of it. And I'll echo what Cindy said too. I just think if we have any leverage here, it ought to be guaranteeing what sites we can for Littleton users. Nothing wrong with that, every town does that. If that, if that rises to the point where there's a parcel of land that we should be buying to do that, it would pay for itself. And we would not only generate revenue from it, but we would do it knowing that we were providing for our own residents. And then again, if there's any of those folks that want to develop around the area, then I would make it contingent on their plans that they have a means for directing their traffic where it should be going, up to Taylor Street and onto the highways. Just a thought.
So that day that we were there, if I may, Mr. Chair, we watched everybody pull out of that parking lot and go up Foster. Nobody headed towards Taylor. They headed towards town. And I was amazed that they wouldn't go the other way to get on, so.
How about a no left turn sign?
Yeah, I mean,
Didn't we
it's
used
all.
to have one 30 years ago out there, or 20 years ago? Thought we did have one.
I think a traffic study is well within the parameters of the grant, and on top of that, yeah, I don't know if that's the right answer, but it's certainly a beginning of the discussion.
The other problem is, and Peter brought up a good point a couple of weeks ago when he was talking about it, Peter Scott behind us, was, oh, he's already left?
You're not even getting the credit for acknowledging it's a good idea.
When we did the first two parking garages, they were private. Nordblum did them, and he ended up selling them to the state. We get no tax revenue from them at all now. What's to say that when the developer who's proposing to put the other 120 spaces comes in, doesn't sell, we lose, we have no Littleton residents first, and we'll get no tax revenue from that. So that's another thing we need to think about when we're contemplating whether or not we want to put more parking spaces out there. There really is no benefit.
Are any of these parcels still on the market?
Which
Are
one?
they still on the market, any of these parcels?
No, the state bought them. They put the two parking lots, the state ended up buying them from Woodville, so they're state-owned.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I think we're in discussions with the developers from Durkee on a parcel across Grimes Lane.
Okay.
Contingent upon realigning
Grimes Lane.
Right, and because they've already granted us the farmhouse, they'll give us a foundation, a septic system, once we relocate the house, with the realignment
And
of
we
Grimes.
raised that specifically with MassDOT of expanding the scope of MassDOT's Foster Street Improvements Project to include the realignment of Grimes Lane, which would then allow us to
be able to park.
build maybe, another 40 parking spaces.
And in that scenario, sorry, Paul, I
Yeah.
know you're trying to move it along, but in that scenario, if the state's giving us the money, can the town hold the parking area? Or does the town get it?
I think if we want to get a parking area, we gotta go out and grab a piece of land.
You have to pay for it.
Pay for it, build it.
No, and that's fine, but as long as we own it.
Unless we get a different deal, unless we get a different, we've raised with MassDOT the desire to have resident-only parking spaces, so.
Nobody's gonna give it to us, we're gonna have to go out and buy it. if we
Well,
want
I
it.
think
We're gonna
that
use
the
leverage.
one parking area that's being proposed currently certainly could deed restrict it if we offer them a special permit to allow them to do it.
Who currently owns the land? Is it the
The developer is Doug Shaw.
Okay.
It's North
Excuse me.
Yeah.
The other issue on parking, just because it's part of the global solution and it doesn't involve more spaces on Foster
It's a
Street.
terrific success, would you make it a quick one?
Which would be to make use of the shuttle and to find parking right spaces and identify where those are, and then we can have the shuttle go to those spaces that we have.
It is working, kudos to Keith, he's been making it work, we just added spots at IBM
Where
last week.
IBM, we're in the process of implementing spaces at IBM, or it's not, don't park there yet, but we will.
Oh, I see that.
When the signs are up, we'll be doing it. But there may be other places, either along the existing route that's shown here, or at other
Okay.
locations.
I didn't realize it was so to speak.
Yeah.
All right, Chief Bernard, were you looking to speak, were you?
No,
Good, thank you. My question was answered.
All right, thank you. I'll make Rich you the final one, and then I'll just wrap up on this great discussion we've had.
And a segue to what Cindy was talking about, the people that, when I was on the planning board, have come to me about traffic on Foster Street 10 years ago, when there was even, discussion about renovating the train station. Well, one concept that seemed to appeal to these people was to make it one way, just for a period. And we could make it one way up to the second entrance to Grimes Lane. And that way, you'd have to go through the whole zigzag if you wanted to go up Foster Street. And so it'd just make it very difficult for people who wanted to go up Foster Street. If you really wanted to go, you'd have to go through the housing project. Otherwise, it would drive everybody to Taylor Street and then to the depot and to 2A.
Well, that kind of creativity, I think, is welcome, but I don't know if that's specifically been solved. Anyway, 4 important topics, great discussion. The record shows we've solved none of the problems tonight. Yes, we did. At the next meeting, which the planning board will host, I'm sure by then we'll have it all figured out. I will be moving to our next agenda topic. I think since council is with us, it is a request from a board member that we have a discussion about our host community agreement with Cricket Lane. We understand the planning board's position that you guys are already entertaining that in a hearing mode, so you may not want to participate in that verbally, but I would say, Cindy, you would ask for this, so.
Right.
Can you want to ask the question and Tom's here to answer it?
Oh, sure. I just wanted, well, as a board, with the Cricket Lane proposal as the most current proposal that's before the planning board.
Yep.
We have one specific provision within it regarding parcel A that we specifically had asked for when we had talks about this project as a board. We really wanted to ensure that there was the open space component. And we listened to the abutters who lived in that part of town and that would be affected by this development. So we came up with the concept to create the host community agreement with the intent, I believe, to ensure that there was an open space component was retained through the development process. So I just wanted to talk to the board about it, to get your thoughts on it, to see if we feel that the agreement's being followed with the intent that we initially with what we initially intended when we created it.
Tom, have you had a chance to look at the agreement and compare it to what's being debated now in front of the planning board and see whether or not, I mean, is there...
So I can't comment on, and I don't know that I want to comment in this forum on whether or not the application before the planning board satisfies the host community agreement.
Well, that's the question at hand here, does it?
I can tell you that, and I don't know that the process is complete yet, but what I can tell you is that the developer agrees to give to the town a minimum 30% of Cricket Lane property to be known as Parcel A. The shape, size, location, and use of Parcel A, and the timing of its conveyance to the town shall be determined by the planning board as part of the senior residential development permit process described in paragraph 1 above. That's the rules of the road that we're operating under. What proposal they have before them, I don't know, and I'd have to look at it, and it's in part up to them as long as it conforms to what I just read.
The language, okay.
Well, I guess first, if you don't mind, I understand you don't want to express a legal opinion here. Do we get ourselves in trouble and the town in trouble if I expressed an opinion about how I think it fits with?
No, not at all. Not at all. They're the permit granting authority, so it's appropriate that they do all their work at the hearing with the applicant present. And I don't want to...
Understood. Before I shove my foot in my mouth.
Whose burden is it to see whether there's compliance with the HCA? Is it the planning board's burden,
It's
or
not.
is it the proponents?
The planning board is not a party to the HCA.
Okay.
The developer is.
Okay.
So it's the developer's burden to produce a parcel A that satisfies this. Our remedy, though, is not through the planning board.
Of course.
Our remedy is just, it's a contract, and we would enforce the contract.
So here's my issue, the requirements for open space, and the reason that that language went in there, and it goes back to what you said, it was intent. And what the senior residential development bylaw states is that open space needs to be contiguous, it needs to be usable by residents of the development. And frankly, although strictly speaking, I suppose there is a sliver of continuity there.
Right.
Its intent, my expectation was that usable doesn't include an infiltration pond with a 7-foot deep cut out of it, which appears to be part of the quote open space.
Right.
I mean, I think this is completely contrary to what we envisioned.
Would we be within our rights to send a letter to the proponent reminding them of our agreement and expressing some concern over some of the particulars that we've seen presented to date?
Absolutely.
Ultimately, though, the language that we put in there
Right.
deferred it to the planning board, and
I just think it's better to go on record earlier rather than later. I mean, if a decision is rendered later on and we decide then we didn't like it, where were you when, when
Right.
it was being hashed out? So.
Right.
While we won't call upon the planning board to do it, I do have, the zoning bylaw happens to have language that's fairly close to the host community agreement in this case, where it says the minimum common open space in the development shall be 30% of the lot area, and not more than 25% of the required minimum common space shall consist of wetlands, and it has other things in here. So with respect to who enforces it, we may well have, and council could weigh in on, we may well have the enforcement mechanism of that embedded in the zoning bylaw that the planning board has to address. But we can.
my concern is that because our HCA says what essentially defers to the planning board shall be determined by the planning board, we're in a bind if the planning board determines that this is somehow, they reach a conclusion that this is both contiguous and usable. I don't know legally how that plays out.
So
It's-
I guess
It's
I would-
certainly not easy for us.
I would look at it this way. You have a contractual right to the parcel A that is to be created, right? So there's parameters on it, there's bumpers on what we can expect. But you do have a contractual right, and you gave away your right to purchase this property for the right to that land. It's entirely appropriate, I think, for this board to express its opinion or dissatisfaction with what is being presented as parcel A to the planning board for their consideration at the hearing.
For both them and for the proponents, and it's on record and
Mhm.
can be a part of their deliberation, however they determine to deal with it.
Right.
Right,
You
that was
folks
my
be
intent.
satisfied with that as an
Yeah,
approach?
absolutely.
Keith, could we, and well, Joe would be stating to this anyways, right? Chuck, do you have a problem with maybe asking these two folks, Chuck and rather Chase and Cindy to put their thoughts together and have Tom work on a letter and let us look it over at our next meeting? Or what would you prefer?
What's the timing of your next meeting?
We meet the second.
So
Of August.
2nd of August is when it
Well, the
comes out.
objective is to raise concerns whether or not the parcel A that's being created is not along the lines of what we had agreed to in our HCA agreement.
Well, to Tom's point, we granted that authority to the planning board. We didn't dictate the size, shape, and layout of that parcel. So we kind of gave up that right.
But I think we had a vision, Chuck, or an idea of what we
We can certainly
intended.
give them, this is, we were thinking this. I mean, just among the planning board themselves, they're all debating what exactly open space.
I mean, there are
But
a number of
On this
specific
parcel-
words we can hang our hat on.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't give, we made exceptions for necessary drainage and utility groups, that's fine, but beyond that, it was pretty well understood that it would be, it would be an open parcel. What constitutes that? Well, that's the debatable part.
I have no problem with draft letter, I just, I think it lies with them to be the,
But I think it's okay for us to express our opinion as a
Right.
board, given.
As a party
that-
to the contract.
As a part.
you have to do it as a board.
Exactly.
We have to.
Yes.
No,
Exactly.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, any of us are,
The HCA does that.
You could post a joint meeting for August 2nd, say August 2nd, if you want to go, and then you could have the board express your opinion as a board.
Well, we'd have to have a meeting
Well,
to
you could
discuss
do it
what our
that, well,
opinion
you'd
is.
have.
you should do it without the
could
benefit
ta-
of a document. then.
You could task
Council.
a subgroup to prepare a draft that you can be reviewing at your posted meeting, which would happen to be at the planning board's hearing.
For your
Do
consideration,
that.
I think I get the sense of what you want. I'm happy to draft it and sign it. If that makes it easier, because you're working under a time frame, I could consult with Chase and
All right.
Cindy on what the letter
All
says.
right, I
but
think
that's up to you.
logistically, we can make it happen, but I'm seeing the hands of Mr. and Mr. Kennard in the back of the room, and I'd like to acknowledge either one of them to join us. Roger?
Yes, my question is, Tom, do you have the host agreement with you?
I have it in front of me.
Okay, read number 3.
The developer agrees to convey parcel A clear of any and all construction debris, and in its current condition, e.g. topsoil will not be harvested. Necessary drainage and utility agreements accepted.
That development also has 37% open space. We can take the 7% out of there to provide our drainage.
So you feel you're able to satisfy the terms of the agreement and still, okay. Do we have specific concerns at this, the table here that you think it don't align with that?
It was, when we drafted the agreement, with the first proposal that the Kennards brought before us, there was an open space area. And I understand that we lost some of that land because of the addition of extra housing units, additional housing units. My concern is, from the abutters' point of view, trying to retain more of that open space, usable recreation feeling, compared to just a border going around the development, a usable open space area. I just feel that compared to what was first presented to us and what's being presented to us now, there's a big difference.
Well,
And I get it that the
You're talking
square
about
foot.
the concept design.
Yeah,
which
and
has
I
20.
understand that we've deferred to the planning board over the shape, size,
Let
and
me
location of
recognize
everything.
Steve, then. Steve, can I?
Yeah,
Steve Kennard, 15 Orchid Drive. The concept that was presented to the board prior to you guys making your decision
Right.
was in fact 30 houses and not the first one of 22. So I
Okay.
just want to make that clear that there was 30 houses, very, very similar to what we're proposing now,
right.
is what was presented to the board prior to them making the decision. Now, the other thing I want to say is that the board decided, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the exact words were, it would be fiscally irresponsible for the town to buy this land.
Correct.
And I believe that was...
That was my
You said
words,
that,
yeah.
right? So, I just think we're losing sight of that. I feel like things are changing. When we were at your meeting, it was fiscally irresponsible for the town to buy the land.
Well, Steve, now,
And
in
we
truth,
created an agreement which we are fulfilling,
Right.
and now things are changing.
Well, honestly, Steve, in black and white, you're fulfilling the agreement. But I think there's a little play with the open space concept to accommodate additional housing units, and I'm really trying to take into consideration the abutters to the property. And I know I've been to the planning board meetings, and they've come up and expressed their concerns, and the message that I got from you was we're gonna work with the abutters, we're gonna work with the town, we wanna do something good for the town, we want to provide affordable housing, the whole bit.
Absolutely.
The abutters have spoken, and I just think it would be nice if there was more of an open space concept, but back to our board, I just want us as a board to review this agreement because we have the agreement with you and see if we're satisfied with
So,
what's being presented.
I agree that the abutters have spoken, and they have specifically asked for some of the things that you are calling out that you do not like. That border, the abutters specifically asked for that.
Right.
And now you're saying, we don't like it.
Well, I'm saying is, that's all they can get, is that border. I think they would actually prefer the large open space field that we originally saw.
Right.
In the conceptual
I think we're
side, you know.
kind of getting into both speculation and the job of the planning board here.
Yeah, I know.
But
So,
we have the opportunity between now and the 2nd to post, if we want to post for the planning board meeting on the 2nd. And if we think between now and then, I would give any member access to Tom to
Right.
talk through it. If we think there's something we want to put on the table formally, otherwise we have the opportunity to attend that meeting and take it from there. That would be my recommendation. I don't know what more we can accomplish tonight.
right,
I think that's what
You okay with that?
Yeah.
All right. Board members? All right. Worth discussing.
Thank you.
Okay, can I suggest that the other two items under Board of Selectmen topic B and C, we defer until after we deal with the liquor license violations, although I'm sure that our two guests have enjoyed their education in municipal government tonight. They probably just as soon get home and go back to their restaurants.
These gentlemen need the front row.
Okay, so this would be topic 7 in our packet.
Nice haircut. And we were using Central Time.
Anna.
Oh, no, I know.
Come back. I won't touch it, I promise.
You put Matt in charge of it.
All right. I actually have an outline here of how I'm supposed to conduct myself, so it's real easy. We've done it before.
I didn't know that's all it took, I would have written
Okay. The agenda topics are liquor license violation hearings continued, and the two, and we'll take them in order. The time, which we apologize for having missed, is not relevant to the topic. The first one is outfit known as Japman Inc., DBA Masala Bay, Navri Singh, manager 501 Constitution Ave, an all-alcohol restaurant establishment. And I will read through, call the hearing to order. We will reopen the hearing. I'm going to state that the hearing is to determine whether on May 11th, 2000, oh, by the way, folks from Masala Bay, would you come forward, please? Get them a chair, you can pull them just closer. Okay. This purpose of this hearing is to determine whether on May 11, 2018, the licensee sold or delivered an alcoholic beverage to a person less than 21 years of age in violation of Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 34. And we'll enter a copy of the public hearing notice into evidence, and I will ask the licensee to confirm that he or she received the notice. Have you received the notice? Yes. Okay. And again, you are, for the record?
A manager, the Masala Bay.
What's your name?
Navpreet Singh.
Okay, all right. Good to Good to meet you.
Good to meet you.
Correct.
One and only one writing.
One and only, yes.
You've been traveling.
Traveling, yes.
Okay.
And I was off today, too.
Okay. We will also, are you represented by council?
Yes.
Okay, they present with you tonight?
No, no council.
Okay, fine. Then I will now ask Detective O'Donoghue to present the testimony in this case. And then in the course of the testimony, well, you know what you're supposed to do, Detective O'Donoghue, so why don't you...
A few times.
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Detective Pat O'Donoghue from the Littleton Police Department, Criminal Investigations Division. Also sworn in as one of the alcohol enforcement agents within the town of Littleton. On May 11, 2018, in the early evening hours, myself, Detective Sergeant Fernandez, and Detective Janakis did a compliance check on 18 establishments within the town, who has liquor licenses or package stores and whatnot. During that evening, 5 businesses had failed, this being Masala Bay being one of them. Quick gist of what had happened that night, we sent in, we had operatives, we had 4 operatives working with us from Fitchburg State College, Criminal Justice Division of that college.
Under the age of 21?
Under 21, but over 18.
Okay, thank you. For the record, we need to get that in there.
Absolutely. And there's something to the establishment. They sat down, Solid Bay, ordered a drinks, and apparently at that point there was some confusion. The waiter that initially encountered them went back. Another waiter came by with the drinks in hand and then asked for the IDs. The violation occurred when they brought the drinks to the table without asking properly. They paid for the drinks and left the establishment. Later, with approximately half an hour after that violation occurred, Detective Sergeant Fernandez went to that business and spoke with the management.
Okay. And Sergeant Fernandez is not here tonight?
He's in Puerto Rico.
He's in Puerto Rico, okay. And is there anything additionally that he would add, or are you adding for him?
Just that he followed up with the actual violation that evening.
And do you know with whom?
He said it was the manager. I'm not sure. Whoever the manager was
He
working
he
at.
got hired. I was on vacation after me.
Is that the gentleman we met last?
Yeah, that's right. You guys had a confusion because you were asking for me and
No, we didn't have a confusion.
You know, he has. We said Masala, we had a confusion, but so he got hired after I went to the vacation, and when I came back, then I met him. So I didn't even know him. Who was he?
Right.
And
Look what
so
he did
there
when he
was,
on.
yeah. What happens?
Okay. I'll ask the licensee if would you like an opportunity to present whatever evidence you wish? Anything you would want to present?
No, it was our mistake. It was a confusion between 2 waiters, and because he went on a delivery and he should have told them I haven't checked the IDs, but we surely would. We are giving them those tip certificates, but we're contracting some people, but we haven't got back to them yet. So it's our mistake. We did it. We're sorry, but we will be very careful in the future.
Okay. At this point, I'll ask the board members if they have any questions to ask of Mr. Singh, or for that matter, the police department.
So the staff is tip certified? They
No,
have-
we're
You're in the
getting
process
them
of doing
tip
that?
certified. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long have you been open?
Almost 2 years now.
Okay.
16, 17.
Wasn't that
16
a
and 17.
condition of your license, or has it been? The certification?
It is a condition.
It is?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. We make that a condition of liquor license, so it should have happened long before now. Certification.
I will talk to the owner.
Okay, that's important. I'm sorry, sir.
Right, yeah, no, right, exactly. So, yeah, from when you obtain that license and open for business,
Yes.
every wait staff person, server, bartender needs to be tip certified for exactly this reason. So it's concerning to me that you've been in business for 2 years and that hasn't been accomplished.
I mean, like I said, I'll talk to the owners and we'll definitely do that as soon as ASAP.
Mr. Singh, if I may.
Yeah.
Are you still the manager of this restaurant?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so you're on the premises?
Yes, 5 days. After 5 till the closings. Yeah.
But you weren't present?
I was not present at that date, no. I was not.
I was on vacation.
We allow.
I have a question, and I'm not sure if it's for Detective O'Donoghue or if it's for you, sir. I'm not totally clear on the sequence of events, because when I read Detective O'Donoghue's report, it sounds to me like the server arrived with drinks at the table and asked for ID at that time. Is that correct?
That's correct. The second waiter did ask for that, but where the violation occurred was that the drinks were brought to the table.
Okay, so the violation is that the drinks were brought, but no one under 21 was actually handed the drinks to consume because they were
From what I was told-
ID'd before they...
Right, from what I was told from the kids that went in there, they sat down, talked to one of the waiters, ordered the drinks. He went, and then the delivery, I believe it was, from what I
Yeah.
understand, didn't inform the other waiter anything whatsoever except for what the drink order was. He brought those drinks to the table, then he did ask for an ID.
And then asked for ID.
That's correct.
And then identified that they were under 21 and...
At that point, as part of the operations, they were told to pay for the drinks and leave.
Okay.
So that was their only job to do.
So,
Absolutely.
So they were told to pay for them so that the operator would help them.
That's all part of the compliance check. If they do,
But the
certain
fact that
drinks,
they
they do pay for
purchased them, that basically they purchased them, they didn't consume them,
Right.
but they did purchase them, so it's,
That's what the
that's,
violation.
Just them delivering to the
The
table.
violation occurred where that first waiter was to ID them after they ordered the drinks, prior to bringing them to the table. That's where the violation took place.
that was all sticky area.
Board members?
I guess I'm still concerned with the whole thing. The first time they came before us, they didn't have the right person here. And it's almost like they don't take it that seriously. And they've been serving without tip certification for 2 years. We don't want it. I understand this thing is prepared for it. It's there to make everyone aware so it doesn't happen again. But it seems like someone has not taken this liquor license seriously.
I mean, we do take it seriously, but we haven't, like you said, we haven't followed the rules, like the tip certification, yeah.
That's what we're getting.
Yes.
That's my problem, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Right.
We haven't
It's
followed
not an
the
option, this is
Yes,
a privilege
like I
that
said.
you're being granted.
Well, I mean,
Have you, Chief Bernard, I know after the last hearing, we asked you to kind of follow up on the issue with the...
That's correct. Detective O'Donoghue followed up immediately the next day.
Okay, any discussion along this line about training?
Nothing was brought up in regards to tip certification at all.
What is our follow-through on that for when the license is issued, especially for new licensees?
I was under the assumption that before they signed off, they had to be tip certified. And I'm actually looking at the victual license now, and it just says they have to follow under 138 general laws, so I'm not sure if they have to actually provide those certifications
Yeah, I
to the
think-
board, or if
Yeah,
they
I
have
think
to
that
a certain amount of time to get them.
Yeah, the policy that the board adopts requires the certification be provided to the chief of police. So, somewhere in there, we can be doing a better job enforcing that.
Right. Once we need to figure out an action.
Yeah, well, let me just follow through the protocol here, unless there's any further questions at this point. Is there anyone else present who would like to speak to the matter? Members of the public, the police department? All right, then I would ask for a motion to close the evidentiary portion of the hearing.
Second, sorry.
Motion made and seconded to close the evidentiary portion of the hearing. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Now deliberate on whether or not a violation occurred. Any debate on that?
No.
Well,
Okay.
I think there is a clarifying point here. I mean, strictly speaking, by the letter of the law, I think a violation did occur. But that's by the letter of the law. There's a substantive difference in my mind between someone simply being provided the drinks.
I'll add in, if it weren't for other factors, I would say this is probably the closest one to being not a violation, except that there are those other factors.
I agree.
Why not a violation? What do you
Well,
mean?
because the fellow who did deliver the drinks actually did ask for
No one under 21
But when
is-
the order was placed.
Oh, I understand,
yeah.
that's why it is a violation, but this is pretty,
And that's what
An
defines,
effort was
that
made.
defines the violation. Once the order's placed.
I'm not saying it isn't a
whether the-
violation,
whatever the
Cindy,
point
I'm
of sale
saying,
system
of
they're
all the
using.
ones we've heard, this one comes closest.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
No, I agree with you on
All right,
that.
we're agreeing, all right.
Yeah, no, we agree on something.
So
There you
next
go.
week,
Okay.
I just want to echo.
Yeah,
think-
I think that's an important question.
That being said, are we in general agreement that a violation occurred?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, can someone make a motion on that?
Move that there was a violation on May 11th at Soliday.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded, that we have determined that a violation did occur on May 11th.
Could you adopt the form of motion?
Oh, yeah, we
I want to move the Board of Selectmen vote to find satisfactory proof that licensee Chapman Inc., DBA Masala Bay, Preet Singh, manager of 901 Constitution Ave, All Alcohol Restaurant, did sell alcohol to a minor under the age of 21 during a planned check conducted on May 11, 2018 by the Littleton.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No, the ayes have it. All right, here's the tricky part. If a violation is found, deliberate on the penalty. So we know from our experience a couple weeks ago what our options are. What's the flavor of the board here?
Well, I guess my question is, if they haven't complied with the requirements of a liquor license, can they off-date? If the wait staff and servers aren't tip certified, is done.
So I think you can take action on that, but I think that's a separate hearing.
Okay.
I think you have to renotice for a license violation of failure to tips training.
Okay.
So again, the parameters, you've got them handy, do you, Keith, for what the ABCC is, that we're paralleling them? I know you had them there at the last one.
Yeah, let's see, those were in our policy.
I should have that printed here somewhere.
Yeah, it should be on,
Oh, yeah, first violation
yeah,
of
it's not
up to 6 days
page
suspension.
129 of your book.
And,
Light reading.
second violation.
I'm good.
That's 160.
They only got to 127.
There's a traffic jam on 128.
Yeah, it says up to 6 days suspension, but weren't we talking about up to a 3 days?
You want to look at the compliance checks staying
Yes,
on.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
First
page-
violation.
Page 1.
Thank you. Yeah, all right, so the guidance here from the ABCC is first violation up to a 3-day suspension, second violation up to a 7-day suspension, and so on. We, at our last meeting, those are of course separate cases, chose to find penalties that we put, we held in suspension for what, a year's time?
Yeah, we held them in
For 1
abeyance.
year,
Abeyance
in
for a
one
year.
case you did a 2-day suspension, in another case 1 day.
1 day, okay.
I would be in favor of it, simply a day held in abeyance here. Understanding that the tip certification is a different issue altogether. And the basis for 1 day is that though there was a technical violation, the net result is that someone under 21 would not technically.
Even though they're separate, is it fair to tie the two to this extent that we have put a penalty on it, but we ask that the compliance check on the status of the, give them a date certain for proving compliance with the
With the tips
tip
certification.
certification?
Or you'll hold a hearing? Yeah. I do think that's appropriate, and I'm
Okay.
hearing 30 days might be a good
Okay.
period of time.
Yeah.
Then, you want to rephrase the motion, and then includes that, we can lump the two together?
Sure, I would move that the Board of Selectmen impose a 1-day suspension held in abeyance contingent upon provision of tips licensing from the applicant within 30 days.
And the held in abeyance period is for a year?
For a year, sorry, held in
Yeah.
abeyance for a year.
Okay.
Okay, so
Second on that?
Second.
Okay. Everyone understand the motion then? The motion then is to impose a penalty, and again, it would be a one-day suspension of your license, but that would be held in abeyance. It wouldn't be applied for a period of a year, so that if you don't have another violation within the year. This would also be contingent on your ability to show within 30 days the tip certification of your staff that serve alcohol. Okay?
I think, yeah, the entire staff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, whoever's work.
Yeah, exactly.
Serving drinks.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, however it generally applies. What's that?
The tip spot, explain that again.
They have 30 days to show that they have been certified.
Completed the course.
They've completed the course and certified.
My only point is that they've been running an establishment incorrectly for 2 years and we're not doing anything about it. I understand what
And you
happened.
can make an amendment, we get a motion on the table. That's, if you want to shorten that period, I just think that, or if you want to.
So we've got a motion on the floor that's been seconded, so we have to take action on that, but my deliberation and discussion around that would be, I feel more comfortable with a one-day suspension, with the second day held in abeyance for a year. Because I think it's, to Joe's point, it's a serious violation, and maybe there was some errors made on our side. I don't know that to be true, but.
I think we want to be careful not to punish for the case that's not before us. What's specifically in front of us is the
Violation.
So it gives us that one-day suspension.
Yeah.
I agree with Paul on this.
They have been noticed
on this one thing, one day held in abeyance for a year is fine, but that didn't stop it there. And act on the other stuff.
And hold a separate hearing associated with the lack of.
So maybe the question to council is, if we are going to have a hearing on the non-compliance with the tips policy, are we better to not mention tips here and just go to the next thing, or does this language?
If you're going
prejudice
to, yeah, so my understanding was you're kind of trying to tie the two together. If you're
Let
not,
me walk the plank on that one, Tom. Reel it back in.
if you want to hold a separate hearing on the failure to tips train, then
And what's their status in the interim?
as of right now, what you mean for the sting failure?
Since we're there, no, let's.
Okay, sting failure, say it's 1 day in abeyance.
Done.
Right.
Done.
So we are aware that there's nobody there that's tip certified.
Right.
As the Alcohol Beverage Commission for the town of Littleton.
Right.
What teeth do we have? I mean, is there a cease and
You can
desist? Is there
You can send you can send
our authorities in?
your authority out there and they can take the requisite action if they're not in compliance with their license. I think, yes, you can close it.
I think there's a really important
What's the
consideration.
exposure for the town if we don't take action and something happens?
There is no legal exposure.
Please.
I don't think anyone can come and, so this is a discretion.
Civilly, they sure could.
This is a discretionary action, and you are not liable for, town boards are not liable for discretionary actions. So, if you're asking me, is someone going to be able to sue you and win? I think the answer to that is no. That doesn't mean you should, your legal liability is not necessary.
Well, they just made us aware themselves.
Right.
That they weren't in compliance, which I applaud him for his honesty.
Right.
And would like to help him get to that point.
His honesty,
But
right?
what's- Yeah, well, whatever. Applaud it one way or the other. Would like to, get it done.
That's fine, and that's, as the regulatory authority, you can take those steps. But the question to me was, do we have any liability if we don't? And I think the answer to that is no, you don't have liability if you don't. There are probably a universe of reasons to do something anyways, but liability is not one of them.
So here, I would rather stick to the spirit of the compliance check, which is training and bringing people into compliance. And in my opinion, the fact of the matter is that a quarter of the other establishments in town had tips certified servers who served and failed the compliance check. Here, we have someone, the net result, if these if these kids were in fact there to drink, they would not have been served a drink. So that to me is the single most important fact here, which is why I would be okay with giving them 30 days to come into compliance with tips as a part of the component of this penalty. Use it as a training exercise and move forward.
And that is the motion on the floor.
Is 30 days
Maybe we could do,
enough time to become compliant?
Well, we're just having a little sidebar over here. I think that what we'll do is, we'll send the alcohol agents into all 18 establishments here in town to make sure that everybody is tip certified, and that we at least have one member of the staff that is tip certified. Maybe the ball was dropped on our behalf, I can't speak to that, but as of tomorrow, we will make sure that all our businesses have tip compliance. I think it's an online program they're gonna actually get on and take, so the manager should be able to do that tonight and be tip certified by tomorrow morning.
right.
And we will double check and I will have an answer to the board in writing by Friday.
Well, if that's the case, then I would prefer to amend my motion to shorten it to,
It's an online
7 days?
course, it takes a couple hours, yeah.
yes, get it
Could
done.
be somebody that's, I think 7 days is reasonable.
Yeah.
Because you might have staff that's not coming in until the weekend. But
Oh.
they can certainly do it and allow.
We'll do it
I allow you to amend your own motion. You're okay with him amending your own motion? All right, now we have an amended motion on the, basically, it's essentially the same with the period to recertify or prove certification reduced to 7 days. Get that? We're trying to make this as confusing as possible, so you can keep up.
Oh, you should have been here last week.
Could I put it in the form of your motion on the board for you? Is that okay?
Can you do what to it?
Put it in the form
Well,
of,
I don't know, Keith wrote that, we risk offending him if you...
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to MGL Chapter 138, Section 23 and 64 to suspend for 1 day the all-alcohol restaurant license issued to Chapman Incorporated doing business as Masala Bay, Navpreet Singh Manager, 501 Constitution Ave, to be suspended for 1 year, provided that tips training is provided within 7 days, and further to instruct the town administrator to mail notice of this action, a statement of the reasons and such action, and a right of appeal notice to the licensee and the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission.
Second,
Just want to check.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded.
I just want to check that, since the word suspended appears twice in that, I'm wondering if we said it.
Suspended,
Held in
suspension.
abeyance. I think we said held in
Held in
abeyance.
abeyance.
Yeah,
All right,
where it says suspended the second time, we would say held in abeyance for 1 year.
Does someone else need to move to amend my motion, Paul?
No, I think we'll just accept that as a friendly amendment. No, yeah. Moved and seconded, any further discussion? All those
No.
in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, serious matter, but we wish you well. I was in your restaurant last week, great restaurant. Best food in town, if you ask me.
Thank you.
And I see that Holton Bar, there's only about 5 seats there, nobody uses it. If anything, once you get your rack straight out
Yeah.
here, I'd say double the size of the bar.
They just come
So
in.
everybody else.
No, it's basically a takeout operation.
You do Joe's roads?
Have you been there? It's
No, I
great.
haven't
Yeah,
been.
yeah, no, it's fabulous.
Food is great.
Yeah.
5 seats, right?
Is it?
Yes.
There are 5 seats in the bar.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not
I have to
like
work
they're-
on
They're
that.
not rocking and rolling down there, you know?
Oh, it's fantastic.
You guys-
Clay loves the mango lassi.
They'll stop in tomorrow.
Sure.
Okay.
We'll definitely tune in.
Thank you,
This
Mr.
was
Singh.
awesome.
You'll be seeing some of our gentlemen in ties and buzzcuts over there over this week.
Thank you.
Okay. Just getting rolling, chief, just getting rolling.
I already said that to him. He wanted to go tonight. I said, whoa, we're getting enough overtime already. You guys are awful late.
I don't want to work my 40.
Greg, you still want to come forward? And James, good to see you again.
You guys can share that seat.
Yeah.
Keep talking from once. I want to apologize for the other day. I had an issue.
Everything's okay.
Okay, I will call the hearing to order. It's again to determine whether or not on May 11, 2018, the licensee sold and delivered an alcoholic beverage to a person less than 21 years of age in violation of Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 34. We'll enter a copy of the public hearing notice into evidence, and I will ask the licensee to confirm that he or she received the notice.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and for the record, you are?
Greg Ayers?
Okay, great. Are you represented by counsel? Okay. Then I will again ask Detective O'Donoghue to present the testimony relative to the incident on May 11th.
Again, Pat O'Donoghue, detective with Littleton Police Department, assigned to the Criminal Investigation Division, and also a sworn alcohol enforcement agent. On May 11, 2018, again, we conducted a compliance check on 18 liquor establishments in the town, within the town of Littleton. And CD before we had 5 violations, CD before there was 1 violations. We had 4 Pittsburgh State College students who was over 18 or not 21 who we sent into some of these restaurants and bars as part of the operation. One individual did walk into the pub on the common and sat down at the bar and was served a Bud Light at the bar. He paid for the drink and he walked out of the bar.
Okay, well, continue. I know Sergeant Fernandez is not here. Whether you want to speak to the follow-up?
Again, Sergeant Fernandez is not here. Sergeant Fernandez advised me he was going to be following up with the owner of the pub on the common who had the liquor license in his name, and that's where it was left at that point.
Okay. All right. I'll ask the licensee if you'd like an opportunity to present whatever evidence you have or make any statement relative to the...
I'm going to let James talk because he was there that night. I wasn't in the store.
Yeah, my name's James Hopkins. I'm the general manager and run it. That was a Friday night, and a group of, one came individually, walked up to the bar in a larger group that was by the bar, ordered a Bud Light, was served, paid for it, walked back. 3 younger people came in, sat with him. The bartender walked over towards them, and they got up and left. So they did. He purchased a beer, was not carded. Whether it was busy or not, obviously not an excuse. Your training and stuff like that to take care of that. Since then, at night, obviously, Sunday morning we had an all-staff meeting where every bartender and every manager was mandatory to be there at 8 a.m. on Sunday morning. We all got yelled at because this is a very serious violation, and Greg was none too pleased on the night that he was not there that something like this would happen. We reminded all the girls about their training because everyone in the facility is tip certified, as they're supposed to be in Littleton. The bartender who served the beer was suspended for her next 2 shifts, which fall on Friday and Saturday. We didn't think termination was necessary because we thought this would be more as a learning tool to show the severity of how a simple mistake on a Friday night could literally, especially for a small business like ours, mean real financial and long-term, problems. So the bartender was suspended for her following Friday, Saturday. And on the manager side, as far as the establishment between me and Greg, we added more staff on Friday and Saturday nights so that there can be more of a presence, maybe myself or Greg, so when they do get the rushes and the swells, because the setup of the pub is a very awkward setup, and the front tables sometimes can kind of be neglected, or someone can order a drink and walk up there. So as far as the setup, we also, in the staff meetings, changed completely the way the girls split up the tables on Friday night, as far as one girl will have the 4 tables, so there's no confusion who's serving who hasn't been ID'd, as well as people in the front tables trying to walk up to order beverages by themselves will just be told, oh, you can take a seat, I'll come over to you. Because you'll have groups, especially college breaks and stuff, where you'll have, 5 people sitting up there, and they come up individually to order drinks because they're on different tabs, but unless you're standing hovering over them, you don't know where the drinks are going to. So we instruct now that if they're sitting up in the front tables and they don't have a seat, you can't just walk up from the front, gotta get 2 Bud Lights and walk back. They'll be go back, see who the drinks are for, and it'll be table service strictly for those 4 front tables because they are a little bit isolated from the actual bartenders and stuff like that. As far as that, honestly, we messed up. This is going on our 6th year, and we haven't had any issues before. We've passed every compliance test before. It was an honest mistake, but at the same point, it only takes one honest mistake for something bad to happen. So all we can say is that we've taken steps, and take this very seriously and let all our staff members know just how important and how one small mistake like that could really, really destroy a lot of things.
Great. I'll ask now, board members have any questions they'd like to ask Mr. Allers or Mr. Hopkins for that matter. Joe, we'll start on this end.
Not right now.
Okay, Chuck? All right, Chase? Cindy?
No, covered.
Okay. All right, I don't have any questions either. I guess we'll probably get into more of a deliberation as we get into the next phases of it. If there aren't any questions, then I'd ask for a motion to close the evidentiary portion of the hearing.
Move that the Board of Selectmen, find satisfactory proof that licensee Common Foods.
No, this is just to close the evidentiary.
This was just a motion to close the evidentiary.
Jumped the gun. Yeah, so moved.
Second.
Second, right. Motion made and seconded to close the evidentiary portion of the hearing. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Now, deliberate on whether or not a violation occurred. Any doubt on that score?
No.
Okay. All right.
Now you're up, Chase.
Yeah, big move.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to find satisfactory proof that licensee Common Foods Incorporated doing business as Littleton Sub Shop, 486 King Street, Greg Ellers, manager, all alcohol restaurant, did sell alcohol to a minor under the age of 21 during a compliance check conducted on May 11, 2018 by the Littleton Police Department.
Second.
Has the motion been made and seconded then? Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Now, the violation has been found. We'll deliberate on the penalty. You folks were paying attention, so you know what the options are. But I'll ask the board then, having heard what you did, in knowing what the parameters are as spelled out by ABCC, what's the pleasure of the board?
I'm comfortable taking similar action to 6 years in business, past other compliance, 1 day suspension and abeyance for a year. I think is appropriate.
Clearly, your staff has learned. I was in there last week, and someone, I think, went to the bathroom, and we tried to order 2 beers. And she would.
Good, I'm glad that.
And yell at them.
People are paying attention.
That's good.
Is that a motion then?
Got 50 in it. Move the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Master Law, review of deliberation before I...
Well, yeah, thank
Yeah,
you. Anything further, Cindy, Joe?
Sorry. Move the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Master Law, Chapter 138, Sections 23 and 64, to suspend for 1 day the all-alcohol restaurant license issued to Common Foods, Inc., DBA Littleton Sub Shop, 486 King Street, Greg Ayler's manager, to be held in abeyance for 1 year, and further to instruct the town administrator to mail notice of this action, a statement of the reasons for such action, and a right of appeal notice to the licensee and the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission.
Second.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. You understand the motion that's proposed? Okay, great. Any further discussion?
No.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? All right. So that, we understand how much importance you attach to it too. Your record outside of this one incident, I think, speaks to that. Enjoy your place of business very much. You're a welcome addition to the Littleton Common scene, such as it is. In fact, you are the Littleton Common scene. Anyway, thank you for being vigilant on this, and we expect that we probably won't see you again under these circumstances.
Hopefully not.
All right, great, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, we should probably, there were a couple of things we put off, and I think we could probably cover them quick. One is a recap on the Littleton Common Smart Sewer Secretary Ash meeting, defer to whoever, Chief Chase, either of you guys want to recap that meeting? You'll do it quicker, Chase?
I'll do it quicker. Yeah, I mean, what we learned is that Secretary Ash is looking for a tangible project that the sewer would facilitate. And until we can put something in front of him that is rather concrete, X number of jobs, X business coming in to bring this, he's a little reluctant to release his available funds. However, he certainly recognized both the broad economic significance of it and its environmental benefits, and told us that he would be happy to work with us in making a pitch to the Department of Energy and the Environment and Secretary Beaton to bring this about as much for environmental reasons as for economic benefit reasons. That said, I don't think the economic benefit reasons are dead. We just need to work harder at showing a concrete and significant impact, quantifiable.
Yeah, it's worth noting, we didn't stumble out blindly into this. We I think properly, and as Keith brought to our attention, Secretary Ash was coming to town, and why not? And a number of board members and Keith.
We want to get a MassWorks grant out of him.
Exactly, right, yeah. So, somebody had the brilliant idea to feed him well from Il Forno. Thank you very much, Mike Mohammed and crew. And his Twitter bud, Chuck was here. I think it was, there's value to the meeting, whether it manifests itself specifically on that topic or not. And I think he's probably self-identified himself as an ally of ours in trying to help on the.
Oh, yeah, he would love to see it with Secretary Beaton's money.
Yeah, right. He'll happily flush. Beaton's money. Yeah. All right. Anything you want to add on to that point, Keith?
Well, I think just that the important follow-up that was done just a couple of days later, where on the last Tuesday night, Jay Ash said, you need to talk to Matt Beaton, I can set up your people, you people can talk to my people and his people, and that first conversation occurred with Chase and Anthony approaching the secretary and his folks on Friday. So, and I know follow-up happened today, and we're in contact to set up a meeting, so.
And what we specifically requested was, I mean, we shot for the moon a little bit. We requested a meeting with Secretary Ash and Secretary Beaton. Realistically, that may mean Secretary Ash's staff and Secretary Beaton's staff. But let's ask for what we really want, and then if we have to back out, we'll back out.
Great. Next topic then, if we don't, obviously we're pursuing a number of different things with the sewer, not the least of which is sharpening our, honing our marketing message onto a piece which I think Chase has contributed mightily to, and hopefully we'll have something that we'll use for a couple months' time to win people over on.
Here's the tagline. I mean, we're sort of riffing on, it builds off of Keith's question, why is this smart? And it really comes down to it's smart for the environment, it's smart for users, and it's smart for the town. And then we can go into the specifics.
So it's wicked smart.
It's wicked smart.
Right. Okay.
You just branded it.
Yeah.
Can I just make one recommendation to the PowerPoint presentation that we have and everything else that we've gotten? Everything we get, or have gotten from Western Sampson says Littleton Smart Sewers. Can we just drop the plural? It's just the one sewer, right?
Right.
It's just great.
Now that you pointed it out, right on.
Right, I'm never going to be able to not see it. I don't know how many of those presentations I've looked at.
Maybe they're doing the marketing, right, for their next one.
Goals. We did indeed have a goals. We agended this. We talked about it in detail. Other folks who provided some of their points, Chase particularly, I think, Cindy as well. Are you comfortable that your ideas were incorporated into the matrix as we had hoped?
Yeah, I thought they ended up in the matrix, essentially right where I had the benefit of the matrix before I wrote mine.
Well, let me ask that question generally then. Is everybody happy with the way it's laid out and the way your own personal goals are incorporated?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Joe?
Yeah, fine.
All right. This wasn't here, Keith, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't. You only scheduled it as an agenda item.
All right.
And you had said 2 weeks ago you wanted to adopt the goals tonight, but you wanted to have the matrix revised to include all.
So we're gonna go ahead and adopt it? Or
So you can adopt it. You did not have a public hearing last year either. So
Okay, good. We've been very public about this, so Anyone care to make a motion on this?
Better it isn't.
No.
Oh, yeah, there is one.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to adopt the following goals for fiscal year 2019. Number 1, master plan implementation, housing, open space, green community sustainability. Number 2, economic development. Number 3, infrastructure needs. Littleton Common Smart Sewer Strategic Plan, water system, stormwater MS4. Number 4, transportation, commuter rail, crosstown connect. 5, roadway improvement plan, complete streets, TIP funding. 6, elder and human services. 7, public safety strategic plans. 8, organizational review. 9, long-range fiscal plan. And 10, town facilities.
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded relative to the goals adoption for fiscal year 2019. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Great, we're off and running.
So that matrix is on the website, so for anybody that wants to take a look at what we're working on, and we try to keep that updated as it's in progress.
Good. Next topic items before our executive session are under the heading of Town Administrator, Assistant Town Administrator, and Departments, NIMCOG, Sealer of Weights and Measures Contract. Is that what you were waiting around for, Bonnie? Holloway?
No, the budget
Oh,
calendar.
okay, all right.
This is an annual contract with the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments to provide our sealer and weights and measure services.
I didn't know they did that. I know Beverly Woods, she's terrific. but
Yeah,
I
it
didn't
goes
know-
up by, our assessment goes up by $1,000 this year, but years ago, we didn't have the capability to do it.
Yeah.
And
they
they
have a
provide the
professional on
service
hand.
for their members, and they
Yeah.
extended it to us.
That's great. Okay,
It's paid for by the fees.
yeah. Members, any discussion? Motion, please.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize execution of an amendment to the contract with Northern Middlesex Council of Governments, MCNMCOG, for sealer of weights and measures services for the town of Littleton in an amount not to exceed $7,000 for fiscal year 2019.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Proposed calendar, fiscal year 2020 budget, October special town meeting. Hey, fine, love it.
In your,
I think I just heard a Jeep
in
start.
your packet, you have a schedule, detailed the budget schedule, joint meetings and so forth. A Couple of highlights to hit. We're looking at a special town meeting on Monday, October 29th, and setting of the FY 2019 tax rate at a classification hearing in mid-October. The Finance Committee is still reviewing the schedule. We haven't, I think, agreed on like what the budget meeting would be, whether that would be mid-December or early January.
They're going to look at this on August 7th and provide whatever feedback that they might have as to the dates. But I did have a couple of proposed dates that they're going to look at.
Okay.
So the motion, frankly, is to receive the proposal, and we'd like to, just so those dates are on our radar screen, and after, but typically we do share with the Board of Selectmen by the end of July, what does our schedule look like for the coming budget?
So I think it's important to note, for reasons that we knew were coming down the pike with an October special town meeting that moves things up so that our warrant would be closing on September 14th, and if any of us are involved in a project that may require a warrant article or something, then we really got to be doing it in the next.
Yeah, I mentioned to the planning board members that if they want to do a zoning for marijuana, a month from now, when the board is inserting articles at your meeting on August 21st, would be a good time to have their draft. So I had included a draft warrant with some articles. One of the things to highlight, we're looking at adopting a 3% sales tax for retail adult use marijuana, along with the sewer borrowing project. project. And planning board, Maren had flagged that that her board was looking at making amendments to the zoning for file for accessory apartments. It's something that they're thinking about.
Right.
But haven't seen their proposal yet.
Do you know what the nature of the amendments that they're proposing is?
No.
Do you know, Anna?
Who proposed that? The planning board?
The planning board.
You were absent that day.
I must have been.
Okay, so.
Usually we can just blame the planning board and no one's here to call us out.
That's why I paid.
Yeah, there's no tax, but it was given a placeholder of accessory apartments.
So if there's an action to be taken, it is to accept, or to just accept the, to receive it.
To receive the proposed schedule.
Ready? Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to receive a proposed fiscal year 2020 budget calendar recommended the Department of Finance and Budget, including joint meetings of the Finance Committee, Board of Selectmen, and School Committee on Monday, August 20th, 2018, Monday, September 24th, 2018, and Tuesday, October 23rd, 2018, with a review of budget requests with Selectmen and Finance Committee to be held on December 2018 or January 2019.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Keith, legislative update?
There is no action to take on this item tonight, and we received an update. The reason why it's on the agenda is that if there are to be any changes in the text of the formal act, it would need to be approved by the Board of Selectmen, and we do not have any changes to bring back to you for your approval tonight. What that will most likely mean, since this is your last meeting prior to the end of the formal session of the legislature, is that in whatever form the bill is taken up will be during the informal session that happens after July 31st. We're told that a bill like this could pass. It will have to be a bill that is as recommended by the committee, and we have attempted to address the concerns that have been raised by the union about changes that the legislature made. It does not appear that the legislature is of a mind to change things back, so we'll have a...
And we're proceeding with the bill.
We're not...
With our support of what's currently here, despite...
Well, that bill will not pass. The legislature will not pass the bill that was sent out. In order for the legislature to pass a bill, this board would have to agree to the form that the legislature has amended. And we
don't know what that is.
We're not ready to do that tonight, but we will look forward to bringing it back to you during the informal session.
Sure.
Of the legislature.
I made you say that twice, but now I understand it. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we hope that moves apace. Minutes approval. July 9th, correct the date, isn't that correct?
Yeah, I love that this is just last week.
Everyone good?
I have one comment in paragraph 2 about the police sergeant promotion, just referring to Patrolman Scola as Mark. I just think it would be more appropriate to refer to him as his title, as opposed to his first name, and that's just me being...
So, will the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the amended meeting minutes of July 9th, 2018?
Second. Okay, motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, now, we do have an executive session. Does someone have and I'll ask Tom to stay with us. I did ask Cindy, if you'd.
We're not going into open session thereafter, correct?
Yeah, I would guess that would be the case, and
Well, you may want to go into, I would leave that
Give
option
yourselves
open.
the option.
okay, all right, we may, or we will.
Even if you come out and report nothing.
Right, okay.
Okay. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A2, to go into executive session to conduct negotiations with non-union personnel and to convene an open session thereafter.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. I will do a roll call vote then. Mr. Knox? Aye. Mr. DeCoste? Aye. Mr. Glavy's aye. Mr. Gerbig?
Aye.
And Ms. Napoli?
Aye.
All right.
You at home, you put the magic box there?
Yeah.
Wait for it.
Okay, well, welcome back to the Littleton Board of Selectmen meeting. We have been in executive session discussing a matter of contract negotiations with our senior employee, our town administrator, Keith Bergman, and he has some news that he would like to share with the town. Keith?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members, and I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this matter in executive session first, so that we're clear on the timing. And I would like to announce tonight that it is my intention to retire as Littleton's town administrator with the last effective date of January 21, 2019, and by agreement with the board would serve as town administrator here on site through November 2nd, 2018, and would be available during those 2 dates that I mentioned to assist with the smooth transition to the next level. The International City County Management Association tells me that I get my 40-year service award for local government service, and my first job in municipal government was in 1978. And for the 37 of those 40 years, I've been a municipal chief appointed administrator. I was 24 years old for my first job, and by the time I came here, I was 50. And I was older than my department heads, and that had not happened to me in my experience yet. But I have to say, this has been the best gig that I've had in my career as a municipal administrator. That Littleton is such a great place to be, to live, to work. The commitment of our boards and staff and the community members, everyone has the best interests of the whole town as their main focus. And that is an unusual experience for me to encounter in a municipal job, but that everyone is pulling for the best interests of the town, and it's been a privilege to be here to help move things along, and I think we've achieved some great things together. We've got some more great things that we're going to achieve together in the coming months, and I'll be happy to be part of that, including helping towards a smooth transition. But I want to thank the Board of Selectmen. I want to thank all the boards of selectmen that I've worked for, and each and every one of them had Joe Knox on them. And it's just been a great privilege to work here. We have town council with us tonight. Tom Harrington is just super job. Watching out for our best interests. It's the most professional staff, it's the most talented staff that I've gotten to work with. They serve the town so well, and I am so proud of the work that they do every day. Great accomplishments, AAA people. that it's a great organization, and I'm very proud of the work that our staff have done. The volunteers, the community members, it's been a great privilege to get to know the people in Littleton, and I will do all I can in my remaining time here to get us, help us get safely to the next level. So thank you very much for your letting me be here and do my thing. So,
Well, there'll be plenty of time between now and Keith's retirement proper for us to acknowledge the service that he's done our town. So we'll do that. I think we'll let Keith's words carry tonight, and the business we have left at hand is to act on the modification of the contract terms that Keith had proposed and that we just negotiated in executive session. So, Chuck?
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 108N, to authorize execution of an agreement with Town Administrator Keith Bergman, providing for his retirement from the Town of Littleton.
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded then. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Congratulations.
thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Now, the tough work begins.
Move to adjourn?
Motion's been made to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to adjourn. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.